Okay, so chapter 2, the Nitya-dharma of the Jiva is pure and eternal. The next morning, Sannyasi Mahashai found no... By the way, this Falshruti is like our Mangalacharyan every day. Instead of saying a Mangalacharyan directly to glorify the chapter, whatever, we're glorifying this Jaiva Dharma through our Mangalacharyan of the Falshruti. This is honoring Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and it's honoring the contents of this grantha. So in every way, we're looking for mercy. However we can weave it there. The next morning, Sannyasi Mahashai found no opportunity to inquire from Premdas Babaji, who was internally immersed in Brajabhav, mellows of service in the mood of the residents of Braj. How can we have faith in Premdas Babaji unless we hear that he's immersed in this meditation, unless we hear that he's immersed in that service mood? Why should we listen to his teachings? So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is showing this person is going to speak, but these are his activities when he's not speaking. So our faith should be strong, fully. At midday, after accepting alms from the houses of the villagers, remember he's Paramahamsa, so he doesn't cook, doesn't have a house or anything, so he begs alms. This madhukari is a very noble act, in fact, for bhaktas to perform. Because when you go knocking on someone's door, begging, you have to be prepared for them to say, go away, or for them to chase you away, etc. It's a very humbling profession, not profession, but way of life, to get your foodstuffs, just to beg. It helps, it supports. We have the example in the Avanti Brahmana, in the Bhagavatam, the 24 gurus, in the 11th canto, the Avanti Brahmana. Huh? Uddhava. Yes, speaking to Uddhav. And in that Avanti Brahmana, we see people would spit on him. They would urinate on him. They would even throw stool at him when he was begging. And he was accepting it all because he understood this is actually the reactions of my previous karmas, going through like that. But it's a very humble. So the elevated Premdas Babaji is performing that at midday after accepting alms from the houses of the villagers. They sat together in the arbor known as the Sri Madhavi Malati Mandap. Such opulence, actually. Here in Bengal, especially in Swananta Sukata Kunj, around the place of Srila Gorkishordas Babaji, that's a Malati vine that's growing all over his kutia. And the fragrance there in different seasons is just intoxicating. It's beautiful. So what opulence they actually live in. They don't live in high rises and all the super sort of monetary type of opulences, but just the most simple way. We should try and organize our, not in the same way like that, but just in simplicity. Simple, simple, simple. If we keep it simple, stupid, that expression, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. If we live our life like that, making things simple, then surely we'll have more time for our development, progress in Krishna consciousness. Paramahamsa Babaji, Mahashai, then began to speak compassionately. Of course he was compassionate. He's just been in his seva to the Brajadam. He's feeling nothing but compassion in his heart. O best of the bhaktas. He's seeing him as best of the bhaktas. It's beautiful. What conclusions have you reached after yesterday's discussion on the subject of Dharma? This indicates that Babaji Mahashai had been contemplating what he had said in the first chapter. These truths from the first chapter are so profound. They're so weighty to make a platform for our progress. They're so perfect about Nishag, Vastu, what is Dharma. Sannyasi Thakur is asking such good questions here. So now let's see. Feeling supreme bliss, Paramananda, Sannyasi Thakur asked, Prabhu, now listen carefully because this question is going to go through the whole chapter. Just like the last question when he asked, what is Dharma? So many people have different opinions about Dharma. How can I have faith in Dharma? That was the question in chapter 1. Now, continuing from that same thought process, same thread. Prabhu, if the jiva is infinitesimal, very, very small, how can his eternal dharma be full and pure? What an incredible question. You've got to be pretty smart to ask a question like that, right? So, of course, this is coming from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's vision. But at the same time, the character of Sannyasi Thakur has the ability to ask such a pertinent question. If we're so small, how can our dharma be full and eternal? How's it possible? It's a good question. And if the natural function of the jiva is formed at the time of he is constituted, how can that function be eternal? If there's a time when he was formed, that means like eternal is without time. Just like we are eternal because we come from the Brahmajyoti, from that region of that eternal place. We have always been in existence. There's no time. But if there's a time when when the spirit soul manifests, then he's not eternal. So he's asking this question, very pertinent, beautiful questions. When Paramahamsa Babaji heard these two questions, he meditated on the lotus feet of Sri Satchidananda, and then smiling said, so again, we commented last time that when we hear a question, we must meditate on our Guru Maharaj, Satchidananda, Nitya-dharma, the whole transcendental personalities that we're familiar with, to beg for the clarity and the vision to respond to that question so that it is them responding. It is not us. We are not the doers of we're trying to connect with that spiritual current, that dhara. So that will be it'll be coming from that place. So it'll be perfect. Then smiling said, respected sir, although the jiva is infinitesimal, his dharma is full and nitya. So he's just substantiated the reality right in one sentence. It's true. Now he's going to go and prove this. Minuteness is only a trait by which he is identified. Right? His smallness. He's identified that way because we are anuchit. Parabrahm, Sri Krishna Chandra, is the one and only infinite substance, Brihat Vastu. Remember, Brihat means greater, and we've already discussed Vastu. Those three Vastus, the Jiva, Krishna, and Maya. And the Jivas are his innumerable atomic particles, so therefore we are infinitesimal. Like sparks emanating from an undivided fire, the Jivas emanate from Krishna. We describe when those sparks emanate, they have the propensity, the potency to ignite the whole world if there's dry grass around sufficiently. So they can manifest into an enormous entity just coming from a tiny spark. So the Jiva has it's the same qualities in the Jiva that can manifest, that quality of spirit. Like sparks emanating from an undivided fire, the Jivas emanate from Krishna, who is the embodiment of immutable consciousness. Immutable means unchangeable. Immutable consciousness. His consciousness is not fluctuating up and down. His consciousness is fixed, perfect. But it's always ecstatic at the same time. But it's not erratic in any way. We are so familiar in this age of Kali that the mind is always disturbed. We all know about disturbed minds. Everybody in this age knows about the disturbance is less like rampant. It's the quality of the age, like the fragrance of the age. If you go to the north, if you go anywhere, there's disturbance everywhere. It's the nature of Kali Yuga. But this gives us impetus to take our spiritual life more seriously. If that disturbance wasn't there, perhaps less people would actually try to take shelter of Krishna consciousness, because they would be illusioned into thinking that they were in Shantaras, happy or something like that, like yogis or something, like previously. Like sparks emanating from an undivided fire, the Jivas emanate from Krishna, who is the embodiment of immutable consciousness. Just as every spark is endowed with the potency of the complete fire, this is what we just said. So each and every jiva is capable of displaying the full function of consciousness. Now he's answering his question. Like, right, this is how the jiva is full. Even though he's very small, he's still able to display full consciousness. If a single spark has enough fuel, it can kindle a blazing fire that will incinerate the whole world. When I read this, personally, I think of Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. How just a single man, old man with nothing apparently, went to the Western world and ignited such a fire of Krishna consciousness at the time. There would be reports of businessmen traveling on planes, and every time they got off the plane in any country of the world, they saw a Harinam party. They were getting the impression this Krishna consciousness is all over the world. And where did it start from? One little old man with 40 rupees in his pocket, with nothing. So that's the example of that comes to my mind just immediately, because we're living with this mercy of Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada and how he set this fire to the whole world. We are his recipients. Similarly, even a single jiva can bring about a great inundation of love by attaining Sri Krishna Chandra, who is the real object of love. If we can really meditate on this, yes, I want to be a servant of Krishna, and I want to be effective in this world for minimizing the suffering of the world by encouraging others to take shelter of their spiritual life, their spiritual growth. But I have to be completely clear on what is that spiritual growth. It's not the altruistic path of just doing good for everybody. It's actually feeding them pure knowledge. I can remember in downtown Sydney, a place called King's Cross. I think it's called Cross. And the Christians would come and they would feed the poor people, the beggars, because there are many beggars there, out of work people. They would give them a cigarette, a meat pie, and a cup of coffee. That's what they were doing, their good work for God. The devotees would come and give them a book, something that would be for their greater welfare, that would give them some opportunity to break out of that darkness of inebriety sitting on the side of the street with nothing. It's knowledge, education that will purify the conditioned jivas. That's what we need. This education is what is lacking in the world. And that's why we print all these different books and so on. That's why we preach it. We're educating. We're trying to educate people. That means that we have to be educated ourselves at the same time. Who is the object of love? As long as he fails to contact the real object of his spiritual function, Dharma Vishaya, the infinitesimal conscious jiva is incapable of exhibiting the natural development of that function. That's a very powerful sentence. As long as we are not walking towards transcendence, as long as we're not performing anything transcendental, we are useless. Just like if the hand cuts itself off from the body, it can't function. You'll just throw it away in the street. It's useless. But if the hand is serving the whole body, then the hand has great function. So similarly, if the jiva is serving nicely the Lord, then his life is completely successful and sublime. It's totally auspicious. What's that? Kleshagni Shubhada, Moksha Lukhata Krit. No, that's the one. No, Kleshagni Shubhada. Yes, just that one. This is the description of sadhan. When our sadhan is, this Shubhada means auspicious. Everything in the sadhak's life becomes auspicious. You don't have massive crises happening daily or weekly or even yearly. Everything just runs very smooth because you're doing this gives us great confidence and confirmation. Yes, Krishna will send these confirmational indications to us. If we're looking for that, we have to see like that. It's a very magical world we live in when we get in that spiritual track. It's very beautiful and blissful. All kinds of, at every moment, it's like the milk won't boil over because you just catch it in time. When these kind of things happen to me, I think to myself consciously, oh, Yoga Maya is supporting me today. When the cup doesn't quite fall off and crash on the floor, oh, it was Yoga Maya who actually prevented that. And it's just like this delicate, it's a moment to moment to moment to moment. So the consciousness can be meditating and appreciating the support of the Lord. If we're feeling like that, it's like a father, if he's lovingly supporting his children, the children feel protected, they feel confident, they feel happy in the world. If you're experiencing that protection from the Lord, you understand what I mean? It's a very confirming appreciation.
It's like putting a rubber stamp.
Huh? Yes. Yeah, it's good. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, he talks about it in another way. He says, like, he's walking in the forest and he sees a leopard or a deer, and he thinks, if the leopard goes that way, it means that my Krishna consciousness is good. If it stops and goes this way, it means it's bad. I used to have a trick on the planes. When I'd get on a crowded plane, I would always think, when I was doing the preaching programs, if there's an empty seat next to me, I know that Krishna's been happy to me. And so many times the plane would be packed and there'd be an empty seat right next to me. And it would just make me feel, because I'd made this arrangement with the Lord to demonstrate the directness of his mercy. So when that little thing happened, then I was always inside just feeling confident. Yes, he's here. There's no question. When you feel that confidence, then this brings us, our faith deepens. It's faith. It's very important. Exhibiting the natural development of that function. Let me read that sentence again because it's so powerful. As long as he fails to contact the real object of his spiritual function, Dharma Vishaya, the infinitesimal conscious Jiva is incapable of exhibiting the natural development of that function. His function is without limit. It's limitless if he's connected. But if he's not connected, nothing will transpire. In reality, it is only when the Jiva is in connection with his object that the identity of its Dharma becomes apparent. That's so clear. When we're directly connecting with our seva, in a mood of seva, not in a mood of, oh, I have to wash Krishna's temple floor today, the temple president told me to do, or something, this and this and this, and I don't really want to do it, I want to be outside doing something else. This is not seva. This is imaginary. Some sukriti may be there, but nothing really powerful or significant. We have to be conscious when we're doing. We're trying to make connection with transcendence. It's not going to happen just by rituals. That's not how it works. It's not just, then you just become like a Vaidhi Bhakta. Everything just according to the rules and regulations, but no thinking actually going on. This is like in the box devotee. Mahaprabhu is described as the most non-conformist preacher to ever come to this planet. He walked around with his arms in the air, calling out Krishna, Krishna, all the way through South India, with nothing. And so much just showering, with opulence and showering out opulence. The most non-conformist preacher. So we don't have to sit in that straitjacket of rules and regulations that we don't understand. All the rules and regulations are ecstatic when we understand them. There's a reason for all of them. The sages and saints have made these rules and regulations to support our bhajan. And if we understand the nature of all these restrictions and prohibitions, then it's total, we can embrace it fully. But if we don't understand it and it becomes like a burden, then we need to be educated more on this. It's like an example, just offering dandavat pranams to a sannyasi, for example. And we should only offer dandavat pranams to a sannyasi once a day. There's no need to do many times in a day. And if you don't offer, then it's actually considered an offense. And that you should fast to actually purify that. Because it's very beneficial for us to honor that renounced order. This is a scriptural injunction, and great mercy will flow back to us from performing that act. Anyway, many things like this.
We should pay obeisances to any
sannyasi.
We should pay obeisances to any sannyasi?
Yes, to that ashram. To that ashram. Not about the personality. If I don't like him or I do like him, that's material. That's a material consideration. But if I'm offering to the ashram in my heart, yes, I'm honoring the ashram of that sadhak, that sadhu. I'm offering to the ashram. Then I should definitely, 100 million% should offer my obeisances there. At least externally. But internally, we can be holding back if we're not having confidence in that sadhu, etc. But externally, we should. It's good for us. This is what I'm trying to share, that it's these sorts of activities help us in our bhajan. They help keep our atmosphere clean. It's kleshagni subhada. Keep it auspicious, because I'm following that sattvic path. I'm honoring superior ashram. The superior ashram is considered the sannyasi ashram. So I should honor it. But today, in this world of hypocrisy and so on, it's sometimes we have to swallow hard, but still we should try to do that with our bodies. Our minds may be somewhere else, but at least externally, then we don't commit any aparad. Because we never know the condition of anybody. We don't know anyone's actually internal condition. We may imagine that we know it, but we probably don't know it completely.
Maharaj, how about when we are traveling, or like you said it should
As
be
much as possible with our intelligence, we should offer. If you can't actually like full dandavats in the airport or something like that, at least you can acknowledge, with the pranams. At least you can have
or
that.
even like in a temple where it is not very convenient, it's through our mind. If it is done,
As much as we can, we should use our God-given intelligence to appreciate that. I don't think it's hard and fast. You should never really offer obeisances to a sannyasi in front of the deities. That's not, correct. Thakurji holds the principal honor in the temple, and we can just acknowledge like that. But outside of the temple, I'm just trying to give an example of being conscious in what we're doing to invoke the auspiciousness of this world when we're sitting in a place, a more transcendental state of consciousness. We should be trying to press all the right buttons, so to speak, and be aware of all these, especially don't committing offenses. This is the biggest thing. Because if you decide not to offer dandavats pranams to somebody because you don't like them or you think there's some fault there, you may be committing some great aparad because you don't actually know the full condition of that person's sincerity or heart entirely. You may imagine you do. With our envious minds, we think all sorts of things. And if we're feeling that someone is definitely fallen, then just avoid them. If you see them coming, try to avoid them. I mean, we have to use our intelligence here,
But supposingly, if we pay obeisances to them, if I know.
We try to do everything. We try to offer obeisances, but just one time a day.
No, I mean to say, like a sannyasi who is having, like you said, we should avoid the sannyasi if we are not having that respect for
that
him.
mamata, that sambandha with
but
that person.
If we offer our obeisances to sannyasi who has committed offense or some problem is there, so will that offense
No. Absolutely not. Absolutely, 100 million% no. You're only giving credit to yourself. You're demonstrating a mood of forgiveness and compassion for that person. But it's correct. But his question was, the principal focus should be on the ashram. If you don't feel confident about the person walking in the ashram, then separate the person from the ashram, but at least honor the ashram. I can remember when I was initiated second time, Harinam, because Guru fell down, and I didn't feel this person wasn't so elevated. And I said, I can't really see you like my Gurudev. Like, I don't just have that. And he told me, and he's very wise, he said, just honor me as you would a sannyasi. A sannyasi is due respect because he's externally at least given up the pleasures of this world. He's restricting that interaction. So that should be honored because everyone should want to be separated from the world. We want that. And if we don't honor that ashram, it means that we don't really have respect for it and we don't want that for ourselves. Ultimately, we should want to be freed from this material encumbrance. Okay. What is the Nitya-dharma, or eternal constitutional function of the Jiva? You must examine the question carefully. This is beautiful. Transcendental love for Krishna Prem is the Jiva's Nitya-dharma. Transcendental love, you should underline that in your book. I've underlined it in my book. Transcendental Prem, love for Krishna Prem is the Jiva's Nitya-dharma. That is our Nitya-dharma. So we don't want to settle for less than that. That's our goal. Exactly like the last verse of Bhagavad Gita. What did I say? Sarva Dharma, this verse. Yes, same. The Jiva is a substance transcendental to mundane matter. Yes, he's not of mundane matter. The consciousness is that which he is constituted. And consciousness is that which he is constituted. And consciousness is that which he is constituted. Does that make sense?
No.
No, it should be of, isn't it? The Jiva is a substance transcendental to mundane matter, and consciousness is that which he is constituted. He is constituted of consciousness in his higher state of mind. The symptom of the soul is consciousness. That's the symptom. That proves that you have a soul. If someone is dead, they don't have consciousness. Consciousness is gone. So consciousness is the symptom of the soul. So this is essentially what this is saying here. Do you understand it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tell me then.
He's constituted of consciousness.
Yes, correct. That's it. He's constituted of consciousness. His eternal function is divine love. And the nature of that pure prem is service to Krishna. How many times have we said that service is the symptom of love? If you serve someone, like for example, if you offer a sannyasi obeisances, that is serving, because that's the injunction of Shastra. That is a loving. And if you do it with love, you will be reciprocated with love. That is the injunction. The eternal function is divine love, and the nature of that pure love is service to Krishna. Therefore, the constitutional function of the Jiva is service to Krishna, which is the nature of prem. You got that? Completely? I mean, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he describes it so clearly. If you just read it carefully, it's like completely clear. Service to the object, Krishna. This is the eternal function of the Jiva. And then his infinitesimal nature has the ability to have the potency of the Supreme Lord. Just like the example of the spark and the fire. The spark can make a huge fire. You understand? When we connect with that source in service, in transcendental service. Jivas exist in two conditions: Shuddha Avashta, the pure, liberated state, and Baddha Avashta, the conditioned state. In the liberated state, the Jiva is completely spiritual, Chinmoya, and has no connection with mundane matter. However, even in the liberated state, the Jiva is an infinitesimal entity. Explain. You understand what that is? You explain it in your own words. Take the mic, it's in front. What can you say?
Although someone is liberated, he's in the Shuddha Vashta state, that he's in his natural position, loving service to Krishna.
Yes.
Still he's infinitesimal, just like
Excellent.
a Baddha Jiva.
Excellent, yes. He's still a servant of that Supreme Lord. He's still infinitesimal, yes. Very good. A Baddha Jiva, his constitution is service to Krishna, and a Shuddha Avasta, a liberated Jiva, is also a servant of Krishna. In either case, that Anuchit is there. He never takes the... How can he take? That was our illusion for coming here in the first place. That was our enviousness, our envious desire.
Maharaj, uh, don't you think this is negating this Sayuj? What is that?
Sayuja Mukti?
Yes.
Sayuja Mukti is merging
Yeah.
into the Lord to become one with the Lord.
Saying that you lose your identity.
No, it doesn't say you lose your identity. It hasn't said that.
Because it's still inefficient, means entity. You have a separate entity. That's what is saying. Can't it be?
No, because love, the ingredient of love is there. When the action of love is there, everything is transformed. In the impersonal condition, there's no connection because there's no object for your love. So there can't be a loving sambandha.
Correct.
But when there's an object of love, then that sambandha will be there. And that is what makes all the difference. So it can't be impersonal.
No, that is what this statement is against that.
Negating Sayuja.
Sayujya.
Yes.
That's what
we don't want Sayuja. Yes.
This sounds like that.
Yes. 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 However, even in the liberated state, the jiva is an infinitesimal entity. What comes to my mind personally is even Jad Bharat was on such a high state, or Bharat Maharaj, when he was meditating. He was in a stage of bhav. His hairs were standing on end, tears were coming from his eyes. He was meditating on Narayan in the sun. But still, he fell down after that. There was some flaw. That stage of bhav wasn't completely perfected. So we can understand also, even in the liberated condition, the jiva is an infant. But that's not quite to the point of what this is saying exactly. The jiva can undergo a change in condition because he has the quality of minuteness. Yes, this is why. We're not vibhuchit, we are anuchit. Krishna, however, never undergoes a change of condition, for it is his very nature. For by his very nature, he is the entity of infinite cognition. See, if we have great affinity and respect and worship for that personality who has infinite cognition, then that mood will actually flow to us. We will never have the same infinite cognition, but certainly we will increase. We will have appreciation. The more we have appreciation for transcendence, the more we are accessing transcendence itself. The more you appreciate the spiritual practice. You understand what I'm saying clearly? Yayata mam pravadyante tamastataiva prajamyaham.
Not exactly understand.
Huh?
I didn't exactly understand, because is this like more an Aishvarya mood?
It starts with Aishwarya.
But
It starts with Aishwarya. He's not even talking about Raganuga Bhakti necessarily.
Yeah,
We haven't really come, we're just talking about the very essence of the soul here. He's going right to the core, because that was Sannyasi Thakur's question about the infinitesimal nature of the jiva. And he's trying to understand, how can it be eternal?
But if someone is at the stage of Raganuga,
yes,
he doesn't he's not his mood. He doesn't think in that way of appreciation.
That's right. He doesn't have that high exalted, because he has more love. The principal distinction of a Rag Anuga Bhakta is that his love is so much more increased than a Vaidhi Bhakti. A Vaidhi Bhakta doesn't have that same love for Krishna, and he has more fear of Krishna. But a Raganuga Bhakta, he has great intensity of love. That love has increased. So therefore, his connection is of a different, but the essential ontological connection is the same. He's still very small. This is what it's saying here. It doesn't alter. It's like the previous paragraph, like you just explained. It doesn't alter. He's still infinitesimal. This is what he's saying, that you don't become God. This Sayuja, you don't become there. It's saying categorically that. Got it? Prabhu, we have to think about these things, for a long time. We're reading them and we're hoping to spark some thoughtful channel in the consciousness, and over the days and weeks we have to think and think and think about these conceptions for them to actually. And we're not trying to understand this. Please, please, just always have the desire to appreciate these things. It's the appreciation that we want, and then the mercy will come to accept these things, not necessarily understand, because like understanding is almost a clinical thing. It's almost like if I understand it, then I can put it in my pocket, then I can be above it, then I can control it. If I understand it, then I can still be the controller. But this is not the way with bhajan. The way with bhajan is always to keep the head bowed, and always to know that we're seeking, praying, hoping, begging for mercy. Whichever stage we're in, we always want more mercy. Whether you're the king of the ashram, whether you're whatever, high position, whatever, if you don't have the eagerness for mercy, then you're a materially fallen, conditioned soul. You understand? Always it's mercy. Always I'm the student in every single situation. I'm learning. If I'm not on that level, if I start to think I'm the master, then I'm doomed. Then I can't learn anymore. My mind just gets closed off. The jiva can undergo a change in condition because he has the quality of minuteness. Krishna, however, never undergoes a change of condition, for by his very nature he is the entity of infinite cognition. By his essential constitution as a vastu, a factual existent entity, he is supreme, completely pure and eternal, whereas the jiva, by his essential constitution as a vastu, is minute, apart, liable to contamination, and subject to repeated change. Very clear. Nevertheless, by virtue of the jiva's dharma, or unadulterated spiritual function, he is great, undivided, pure, and everlasting. So that's a complete contradiction. Can you absorb it? He's saying on the one hand, we're completely small, and on the other hand, we're completely great. This is our dilemma, because it's true. When we're out of touch with transcendence, we're completely poverty-stricken. When we're in touch with transcendence, we're completely euphoric and so potently powerful. Like Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, completely in touch. What could he do? He could set a fire in the whole world of Krishna consciousness. But if he went away from Krishna consciousness, he would just be like a Bada Jiva, useless. See, it's a dichotomy. That's what causes more confusion in the world. Besides all the other ingredients that are causing confusion, hypocrisy, etc., etc. You know, pollution, bad food, all these things causing confusion in the mind. But we have to reconcile. We are marginal. Marginal means I have the nature of spirit, but I'm covered by matter. So I fall into matter. It's got to be clear for us. Only with the clarity can we actually get out of it. If we don't have clarity on this subject, we'll be covered by it and be crying out, oh, Maya's giving me a hard time. I said the other day, I'm holding on to the tree and shouting, let go, let go. Who's holding the tree? I am. I'm holding on to the illusion. If I take responsibility for it, I can actually undo it. But if I don't have the courage to take full responsibility, I can never undo it. This in English is called a victim complex. It's not my fault. It's like when we get to the 16th chapter, we have Brajanath asking all these questions. It's not my fault. Why am I suffering? Why am I here? It's all Krishna's fault. He made it like this. Why did he make me suffer like this? This means he can never get out unless we accept the situation. I'm just going to finish this paragraph before we stop. As long as the jiva is pure, his dharma displays its spotless character. However, when he is contaminated by involvement with Maya, his true nature is perverted exactly like the ice. It's nishag again. Same, he's repeating himself from the first chapter, but in a different language in a sense. He becomes impure, Bereft of shelter and oppressed by mundane happiness and distress, the Jiva's course of material existence comes into effect as long as he forgets his attitude of service to Krishna. It's all so simple, and we've heard it a million times before, but it's really inspiring to read it again in a different sort of light that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is presenting it. We know all these truths already. You've lived with them for so many years, but we're just hearing it from another. And each time we hear it from a different sort of perspective, perhaps it'll tweak something more profound in the consciousness to make it a reality in our lives. Okay, Jaiva Dharma ki jai. Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. So we're on page 17 at the top, and we'll continue tomorrow. I just think this chapter is just astonishing. We haven't read much, but we've read oceans, haven't we? I feel like we've been right through the oceans of the depth of our material existence and the height of our spiritual aspirations and the spiritual reality. Jai. Okay, so we come to page 16, or 17 rather. 17 of our Jaiva Dharma. So yesterday we were discussing the nature of the Nitya-dharma, or eternal constitutional function of the Jiva. And you must examine this question carefully. Transcendental love for Krishna Prem is the Jiva's Nitya-dharma. So we're discussing something very wonderful, very profound. The Jiva's Nitya-dharma. So all we have to do is unveil the nature, the true nature within ourselves. What's that? Tired today. Prakritam Hriti Satyate. This is the last line. Remember this verse?
Bhagavad
No. Rupa Goswami is saying the method.
Satya.
Huh?
Bhavet Sadhya.
Yes. How does it start?
Bhavet Sadhya.
Bhavet Sadhya Bhav.
Bhava
Siddhite. Nitya Siddhyasya Bhavasya Prakritam Hiti Sadyate. Said this verse a million times, but sometimes it just doesn't come. Okay. Kriti Sadhya Bhavet Sadhya Bhav Sasadanabhida Nitya Siddhyasya Bhavasya Prakritam Hiti Sadyate. That Prakritam Hiti Sadyate. It's in potential. This spirit soul has the potential. Yesterday we discussed the marginal energy, right? So the marginal potency can fluctuate between the two. Essentially, we are made of that Antaranga Shakti. That is our constitution. But we have covered by this nishag, this acquired nature of the Bahiranga Shakti. I'm not of this Bahiranga Shakti. I'm only of that Bahiranga Shakti when I'm associating with this world as if I am that identity of the material body. You understand? Yes, a little bit. Takes time. Takes time to really catch it. A lot of time. Can take lifetimes and lifetimes. But we diligently work in that direction. And mercy will come when we perform. We were talking yesterday about connecting with transcendental activities. When we perform puja, etc. When we perform our Harinam. When we perform parikrama, when we come to the Dham. Any transcendental activity connecting us with transcendence is going to increase the opportunity for us to leave this material conception behind. So we have to try to pack our day up with transcendental activities as much as possible. We've got 24 hours in the day. When we sleep, it's like tamagun. Nothing's happening. So while we're awake, we should try to carefully guide and steer our life in the transcendental direction always. So now we're on top of page 17, I think.
Yes,
Is it?
Yes,
Yes.
as long as.
As long as the jiva remains pure, he maintains his identity and self-conception in accordance with his unadulterated spiritual function, swadharma. So as long as we're connecting with transcendence and we're pure, then our swadharma is going to be manifesting. It's going to be there, right? It's so simple, but it's so difficult for us to actually follow at the same time. Let me read this again because it's so good. As long as the jiva remains pure, he maintains his identity and self-conception in accordance with his unadulterated spiritual function, swadharma. Okay, very clear. His innate and original egoism is therefore rooted in the conception that he is a servant of Krishna. That's his swadharma. That's in the Antaranga Shakti. In that pure spiritual consciousness, I am a servant of Krishna. And the relish and the bliss and the sweetness that the jiva experiences by that service is beyond words. We can't describe, we can't begin to describe the relish of that experience. Rupa Goswami, he's described that the bliss of pure seva is so many trillions and trillions of times more blissful than that Brahman realization, that impersonal Brahman realization. It's going to come to this because Sannyasi Thakur will ask a question about Advaita Siddhi, and it's going to be comparing the two between pure Prem, Mahabhav, and Advaita Siddhi. We'll come to that then. His innate and original egoism is therefore rooted in the conception that he is a servant of Krishna. However, that pure egoism recedes and assumes many different forms as soon as he is contaminated by association with Maya. Again, it's like the answer we just heard in the previous chapter when Sannyasi Thakur is asking, why are there so many dharmas? He gets confused. People who talk about dharma and there's so many different types of dharma, surely there's one dharma. So Prem Das Babaji, he's explained the understanding of what is avastu, what is pure dharma. And now this is the same message again, contaminated by Maya. The gross and subtle bodies then cover his pure constitutional identity, and as a result, a different egoism emerges in the subtle body, lingasarya. Understand the subtle body, the mind, intelligence, and false ego. This is the subtle body. And we cannot attain pure prem while the subtle body is still functioning, so to speak. The subtle body has to be completely purified, completely pure, given up. We read in the example of Prithu Maharaj when he's leaving this world. It's describing him. He just completely separates himself from the subtle body totally. Mind, intelligence, and false ego don't exist anymore because they become completely purified by the higher conception of the soul simply serving the Lord. He comes into his swadharma. When he's in his swadharma consciousness fully, the subtle body has no function, just like the gross body is not there. So subtle and gross, both have to be completely purified. The gross and subtle bodies then cover his pure constitutional identity. Yes, so the subtle and the gross have to be purified completely. And as a result, a different egoism emerges in the subtle body, lingasarya. When this combines with the soul's identification with the gross body, sthulasarya, a third form of egoism is assumed. So we have these three essential states of consciousness. We have pure spiritual consciousness, then we have the subtle, and then gross. Three distinct stages or states of consciousness, When the jiva identifies with the subtle body, his original pure egoism of being a servant of Krishna is covered, and he thinks that he can enjoy the fruits of his actions. He then obtains a gross body and thinks, I am a Brahmana, I am a king, I am poor, I am miserable, I am overwhelmed by disease and lamentation, I am a woman, I am a master of this person and that person. Thus he identifies himself with many different types of gross bodily conceptions. Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes this again in the 7th chapter. In the 7th chapter, there's a long description of different types of identity that are that he references. We can just look at it for a second. In the 7th chapter, it's very powerful, so it's good to
131
131. Okay.
and 132. Bottom 131.
Yes. He says it's the same message, the same principle, but let me read it. It's a little more lengthy, but it's making the point very, very clear. He says, but in the conditioned state, many different types of egoism arise, making the living entity think, I am a human being, I am a devata, I am an animal, I am a king, I am a brahmana, I am an outcast, I am diseased, I am hungry, I am dishonored, I am charitable, I am a husband, I am a wife, I am a father. All of these are huge points of egoism. Father, huge. Wife, huge. All of it. I am a son. I am an enemy. I am a friend. I am a scholar. I am handsome. I am wealthy. I am poor. I am happy. I am sad. I am strong. And I am weak. These attitudes are known as ahamta and literally means the sense of I-ness or false egoism. And let me read the next paragraph too, because it just concludes it. It makes it more clear completely. Besides this ahamta, another function known as mamata, possessiveness, or the sense of minus. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is so generous-hearted and compassionate. He's just putting it on a plate for us. He makes it so simple when he describes it like this. If we can meditate on this and see it. Possessiveness or a sense of minus enters the nature of the jiva. This is exemplified in attitudes such as, this is my house, these are my possessions, this is my wealth, this is my body. We talked today about the bank teller being in the bank, pretending to renounce all the money in the bank when it's not his anyway. There's nothing that belongs to us in this world. So all of these are identifications with the belief that something does belong to. This is my wife. This is my husband. This is my father. This is my mother. This is my caste. This is my race. This is my strength. This is my beauty. This is my quality. This is my learning. This is my renunciation. This is my knowledge. This is my wisdom. This is my work. This is my property. And these are my servants and dependents. Now, this sentence is beautiful. The colossal affair that brings the conceptions of I and mine into play is known as samsara, material existence. All of this is material existence. Put it in a package together and see what a gift Bhaktivinoda Thakur is revealing very simply. This possessiveness and identification with the body as I. Both of these constitute the colossal affair of samsara, which is the whirlpool that we've been caught up in. When the jiva associates with these different types of false egoism, his constitutional function becomes perverted, just like the block of ice in the beginning in the first chapter. It's become perverted. This whole material world is the perverted reflection of the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, everyone's focus is on service to the Supreme. In either Vaikuntha, in Dwarka, in Mathura, in Vrindavan, it's all focused on Krishna. In whichever realm the jiva finds himself. But in this world, everything is focused on the jiva himself. This perverted, this self-looking all the time, self, 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 self. This is the perversion. It's not looking out to serve Krishna, it's looking in to serve me and my senses. day after day, month after month, year after year. How can I take advantage of this material energy for my pleasure? Not how can I take something from this material world and offer it to Krishna? These are all basic tenets and precepts, but we have to hear them to understand the supreme reality. The intrinsic constitutional function, swadharma, of the jiva is unalloyed prem. This prem manifests in a perverted way in the subtle body in the form of happiness and distress, attachment and aversion, and so on. This perversion is observed in a more concentrated form in the gross body as the pleasures of eating, drinking, and contact with sense objects. Okay? We can't read this quickly. You know, if you gloss it and just read it quickly, thinking, yes, I know that, I know that, I know that. Yes, of course we know that. But when we ponder on it, when we meditate on it, then perhaps we may have a glimmer of realization of it. We are seeking vigyan, not gyan. We're seeking realization of these truths. And that realization will only come by mercy. If our practices are sincere and regular, then some result is definitely going to ensue. You should understand clearly that the eternal function of the jiva, known as Nitya-dharma, is manifest only in his pure state. Very clear. Only in his pure state. The dharma that arises in the conditioned state is known as naimitika or naimitic, circumstantial. Nitya-dharma is by nature complete, pure and eternal. I will explain naimitic dharma at length another day. That's actually in the next chapter. The unalloyed Vaishnava dharma that has been depicted in Srimad Bhagavatam is eternal religion, Nitya-dharma. The various types of dharma that are propagated in the world may be divided into three categories: Nitya-dharma, naimitic dharma, circumstantial dharma, and anitya dharma, impermanent religion. And Nitya-dharma is religion that does not speak about the existence of Ishvara and does not accept the eternality of the soul. Naimitic dharma acknowledges the existence of Ishvara and the eternality of the soul, but only endeavors to obtain the mercy of Ishvara through provisional methods. That means that they're still attached to the naimitic aspect of this world. Like many religions, they're asking all the time, give me my daily bread, etc. People, they go to church, etc. They go to places of worship so that they will benefit something. That's better than not going to the place of worship. So it's a step up from anitya. But still, it's completely attached to the precepts of this material, this dull matter. You just read it in the Falshruti. This dull matter having this attachment there. Naimitic dharma acknowledges the existence of Ishvara and the eternality of the soul, but only endeavors to obtain the mercy of Ishvara through provisional methods. Yes, if I worship, then I'll get some result. Nitya-dharma strives to obtain the service of Bhagavan by means of unalloyed prem. Such a huge contrast. The devotee has really swung his whole ambition, his whole consciousness away from what he was programmed initially from the birth, where we're looking for our pleasure. Now all of a sudden we're looking for Krishna's pleasure. And there's an interim stage where we get confused and we think that by looking in the impersonal way, that will satisfy Krishna. If I neglect the very personal services of Krishna and just look towards the mystical phantasmagoria that can manifest in a meditative consciousness, you understand, we can get actually caught up in this. But this mystical path has nothing to do with service to Krishna. It's still I-orientated. It's still me at the center wanting to taste something phenomenal or phantasmagorical, some special type of bliss. But it's not devotional service. So many devotees come with a misconception that now all my mystical desires will be fulfilled. But then halfway through, it's like when we read the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami, he talks about the bliss of liberation in about the first third of this doctrine. And then gradually he shifts over to the bliss of seva. But in the beginning, that bliss of liberation can be the carrot, can be the attraction to capture the conditioned souls, because they're suffering in Maya and they just want to be happy. They're not fulfilling themselves in Maya. And then they gradually come, they get attracted to become liberated, to become freed from the material encumbrances. And then, but slowly, but if they don't catch the essence of devotional service, then they haven't really succeeded. They're still in the material whirlpool. And how do we catch that devotional service? Principally, it's by hearing the sweetness of Krishna's Leelas. Really, really, this is what brings us into the kingdom of Vrindavan. This was what brings us into the kingdom of the Lord, when we hear the sweetness of the interactions between even the residents of Vaikuntha, the residents of Dwarka, Mathura, but especially the residents of Vrindavan, of course. If we hear regularly these interactions between Krishna and the Brijvasis, then such a personal force will come from hearing those Leelas, and repeatedly hearing these Leelas again and again will fill the heart with so much joy and happiness hearing about Radha and Krishna. It takes us right away from this liberation type of flavor, you can say, that might be lingering in the consciousness. That has to be purified. Somehow I want to make a nice situation for myself, so I'm happy here, etc. All of this will be very easily purified if we're regularly hearing so much Leela Katha. At the moment, the text is not about Leela particularly, so it's hard to bring that in, but this is the essence, is the Leela, is going to excite the heart and warm the heart. Nitya-dharma may be known by different names according to differences of country, race, and language. We said that at the very end of the last chapter. If you just flash for a second back to the last chapter at the very end, chapter 1, just before he concluded, it's saying exactly the same thing.
The Nitya-dharma
Tell
is
me.
one,
Yes.
indivisible and faultless in all different situations. But the Naimitic Dharma assumes many different forms.
Yes, the Naimittic Dharma assumes many different forms.
When seen in diverse circumstances.
Divergent, yes, is described in various ways by men of divergent opinions. Same thing. Same thing. Try to connect with the very essence of this Jaiva Dharma and hear the way that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is crafting it for us and how he's bringing us along a tangible path here. Nitya-dharma may be known by different names according to differences of country, race, and language. However, it is one and supremely beneficial. This is basically, again, what we had in the first chapter. This is why my Gurudeva said that the first chapter is the most important chapter, because this is bouncing back to the first and taking the truths again. If you miss them on the first one, you get a chance for the second. If you miss them in the second, you get a chance for the third, etc. Because they have these, it's like drops of essence. And if you're not focusing sufficiently, you're going to miss them. That's why we go over them again.
Maharaj, if the Nitya-dharma is the same, then why do we have this different ras?
Different what?
Ras.
It's still worshipping the same. It's Nitya-dharma is worship. You can worship in servitude, you can serve it in Dasya Ras, you can serve in Sakya Ras, you can serve in Vatsalya Ras, you can serve in Madhurya Ras. They're all symptoms of service. They're all categories of service. Krishna likes all these types of service because they're all very personal. They're all very potent. all of these different rasas. So the jiva has a nature to serve in one of those 5 or 4 principal rasas. If it's 5, then it's in Vaikuntha basically. But that's why there's many different there's 5 principal rasas, but there's different nuances or aspects in each rasa.
So that's what we have so much articulation. Let's say even in Madhurya Ras, there are so many
Yes,
there's
degrees.
Manjaris and
Variegatedness makes up the flavor of the spiritual reality. It's so diverse, it's so variegated. Krishna himself, it's all about Krishna. It's not about us. What does Krishna like? Krishna likes variety. So he's manifested all these jivas, and every single jiva has a different rasa. No 2 jivas have exactly the same rasa. And there are trillions and zillions of jivas. And they all have slight different, like we're sitting in this room now, 4 or 5 people. We're all completely different to each other. Totally different. Each of us, right? Just look at each other. Completely different. I mean, look at Bihari. He's like a man on his own planet, you know, completely different. Everyone is different. Look at Govinda. He's just another planet practically. And Gokul, a whole nother conception. And Ras Manjari, just a whole nother world is there. Your world, right? They're completely different. Nothing is not even like close to each other in a sense, but we have the same interest of worship. That's Dharma. That's the Nitya-dharma. The Nitya-dharma is the focus of worship. If our Nitya-dharma is all focused in the one direction, then we're all connecting with that purest part of Dharma. Because the only Dharma we've understood to raise the Swadharma from the soul is service to Krishna. And if that's not there, we're in the material consciousness. And if it is there, we're in spiritual consciousness, even if you're residing in this material world. The ideal example of Nitya-dharma is Vaishnava Dharma. Oh, hang on. However, it is one and supremely beneficial. Let me just start this paragraph again because I stepped out. Nitya-dharma may be known by different names according to differences of country, race, and language. However, it is one and supremely beneficial. The ideal example of Nitya-dharma is Vaishnava Dharma, which is prevalent in India. The pristine state of Vaishnava Dharma is that Dharma which Bhagavan Sachinandan, the Lord of our heart, has taught to the world. It is for this reason that great personalities absorbed in the bliss of divine love have accepted these teachings and taken help from them. As soon as we mention Mahaprabhu, as soon as we mention the divine son of Sachi Devi, then there's a whole shift actually, because this is not like an ancient text that he's revealing here. He's brought it right up to speed with this century, with this place where we are now. It's not something where we're trying to relate to it, like in the Bhagavatam is so splendid, but it's kings and queens of the past, 5,000 years ago, and Kshatriyadam, etc. It's a whole nother beautiful, colorful tapestry of relationships that are there, the different personalities, Vidura, etc., all the different Yudhisthira Maharaj, all these different great noble personalities. But we have a different set. We have under Mahaprabhu, we have Rupa Goswami, we have Sanatan Goswami, we have Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, we have Krishnadas Kaviraj, we have all these luminaries, recent luminaries, you know, who we can relate to. So Krishna wants nothing except the welfare of the jiva. It's described that Krishna wants our relationship to wake up with him more than we want our relationship to wake up with him. He is more anxious. That's why he drops this mercy in so many different ways. If we're really awake, we can see that every day, thousands of times, mercy comes to us. We were describing yesterday how just little tricks of the mind. I gave the example of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur seeing a leopard or a deer, saying, if it goes this way, it means that. If it goes the other way, it means this. And I told him my own little trick that if I have an empty seat next to me, all of these types of things indicate the supreme presence of transcendence wants to wake me up. Why am I so stubborn? Why am I lagging behind him? He is so enthusiastic for me. And if we can catch that current, catch that wave, then we can get on like a rocket and we can really move along towards him in our loving devotion and expand unlimitedly, practically. Anandam buddhi vardhanam, that this sweetness, it's not limited. The bliss is unlimited. The jiva's condition is limited in a sense, but the bliss the jiva can experience is unlimited. Anandam buddhi vardhanam. We're saying in the Shikshastikam, right at the very beginning, Cheto Dapana Marjanam, Bhava Mahatavagni Vartanam, Shrem Karaiva Chandrika Vitaranam, Vidya Vadu Jivanam, Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam, Pratipatam Punam Svatanam, Sarvatma Snapadam Parampajayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. So this Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam is there. The pristine state of Vaishnava Dharma is that Dharma which Bhagavan Sachinandan, the Lord of our hearts, has taught to the world. It is for this reason that great personalities absorbed in the bliss of divine love have accepted those teachings and taken help from them. Yes, all those luminaries in our Rupanuga Guru Vargya have taken shelter of the teachings of Sachinandan Gaurahari. At this point, Sannyasi Thakur with folded hands said, Prabhu, I am constantly witnessing the super excellence of the spotless Vaishnava Dharma, which Sri Sachinandan has revealed, and I have clearly realized the contemptible nature of Sankaracharya's monistic doctrine. Still, something has come to my mind. This is wonderful. This is Sannyasi Thakur, a personality like a Brahmagyani, believing previously in Advaitavad, Advaita Siddhi, very intelligent, which is obviously apparent here through the text. And now he's demonstrating that all this is just being left behind by hearing these clear truths. It's not just hearing the truths, but it's hearing them from Prem Das Babaji. If we just hear them from different sources, they may have an effect on the heart. If we hear them from a realized soul, if you're fortunate to be in the company of, say, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, my Gurudev, Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj, any of these great luminaries in the past, if you're in that assembly and you hear the truths enunciated by them, they can immediately ignite the consciousness to have great, great faith in these truths. So it does depend on who we hear these truths from. There are so many people preaching these truths, but some will appeal to you and some won't. We have to be careful there. Still, something has come to my mind, which I feel I must submit to you. I don't want to hide it. I understand that Mahabhav, which was displayed by Sri Chaitanya, is the highest state of concentrated prem. Well, he's come a long way just in a few weeks, it seems. He's understanding what is Mahabhav at this stage. Is it different from the attainment of the perfection of absolute oneness at Advaita Siddhi? So I alluded to this just before. So this is the question that's going to be unpacked for the rest of this chapter. So I'm going to stop now. A little bit early, but we can stop now. How many more? Yes. I'm going to try, just for the sake of our listeners and people watching, I'm going to hope that we can do a single chapter in a week. That's my ambition, to try to cover a chapter a week. And that will be very comfortable. Then we'll be making steady progress. But I'm not rushing, obviously, as you can all appreciate. I'm wanting to go over it very significantly, because that's where the juice is. When you dig down and dig down and dig down and go into it. And then what happens is you can't read it without digging into it. When you get habituated to stopping on every sentence, then it becomes a habit. Then your whole reading process actually changes. Then you no longer are just glossing through various books and so on, but you're looking for the nectar in the books, because many of these books, like If you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, any of the books, 10th Canto, etc., they are so significant. The Acharya's commentaries, and if you just read sentence by sentence carefully, then they can take us to such a place of elevated consciousness. We'll get that impression and that experience if we're chanting nicely. Chaito Dapana Marjanam. It clears the mirror of the consciousness, this chanting. And when that is clear, what has to be cleared is our mental obstructions. You know, we're carrying so much mental baggage which slows us down. I'm appreciating now, just as an aside, I'm saying this, that it appears to me that many of my Indian God brothers and sisters don't get so mental as the Westerners get, because they haven't been so extremely exposed to the degree of sense gratification that many Westerns have been exposed to. We've been exposed to unlimited amounts of sense gratification, whereas I'm seeing that many of these purer personalities, today we were with 3 different sannyasis, and I could see that they just weren't mental about things. They were able just to do things in a direct manner without getting into a whole mental involvement about them. This is an evolution of consciousness when we can drop those mental considerations every time we have to do something. Do we have to think about it so much? Can't we just do it directly? You understand what I'm saying? It's a gift. So we'll stop there. So tomorrow, Babaji is going to glorify Sankaracharya very beautifully. And it's actually mind-blowing when we hear Sankaracharya glorified in the... Sankaracharya, of course, is Shivji. And he's not denigrated, he's not put down at all. Premdas Babaji glorifies him for his real purpose. And it's very, very ecstatic. Okay, Jaiva Dharma ki jai, Vaishnavas ki jai, Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gold Premanandi. So now we come to page 19. Correct? Oh, we're just about to talk about Sankaracharya. Very nice. So actually, yes, it's on page 18. Okay. So, yes, Sannyasi Thakur has mentioned Sankaracharya to Babaji. Now, Babaji's heard this name and he feels, Babaji appreciate is an Uttam Bhagavat. He only sees every aspect of Krishna's mercy everywhere. So Sankaracharya, even though this Sankar, what's it called, Sarika Basya, is very prevalent as like a Mayavad doctrine today, but its origin is not actually Mayavad, but the disciples have made it in their uneducated understanding. They've made it into a Mayavad. But Sankaracharya, we'll read because it'll explain very clearly. Try to understand this part closely. When Paramahamsa Babaji heard the name of Sri Sankaracharya, he offered prostrated obeisances unto the Acharya and said, we're talking about Shivji here. Vaishnavam Yata Shambhu, the greatest Vaishnava in existence is Shivji, the greatest personality. So this is who Paramahamsa Babaji is perceiving as Sankaracharya, the greatest Vaishnava. So he's offering his obeisances straight away. Respected sir, Sankara Sakshat. Sankara is none other than Mahadev Sankar or Shivji. So be clear on this. You should always remember this. Sankar is Guru for the Vaishnavas, and for this reason Mahaprabhu has referred to him as Acharya, spiritual preceptor. We have to understand this because the Sankara Advaita philosophy is opposed, of course, to Vaishnavism. So if you're uneducated, you will think, oh, Shivji, he is opposing Vaishnavism. We have to understand it deeply, and it's going to be explained. Understand the importance of appreciating this point. For his part, Sri Sankaracharya was a perfect Vaishnava. At the time of Sri Sankara's appearance in India, there was a need for a guru avatar like him, an incarnation who presides over the qualities of material nature. The study of the Vedic Shastras and the practice of Varnashram Dham had become practically extinct in India due to the influence of Shunyavad, Voidism, the nihilistic Buddhist philosophy, because Lord Buddha, as we've said so many times, he had to push the teachings of the scriptures of Shastra out of India in order to establish this Shunyavad or Mayavad, this philosophy of Nirvishesh Brahm, this philosophy of Nirvana, in order to establish the philosophy of Ahimsa, non-violence. He had to push out all what was obstructing. This is Krishna himself, Buddha avatar. Of course, there's Sakya Singha Buddha, the second Buddha that came along, who's completely Mayavad. And that's what most people worship today. But previously, Buddha avatar still had to perform this operation. It's like an operation. So see the whole events over thousands of years, over maybe 2,000 years from Lord Buddha's advent was approximately 1,500 years after Krishna left this world. That's what, 300, 3,500 before? Yes.
700 years before.
Yes. Yes. And then the Sakya Singha Buddha, the second Buddha, who was born in the same place in that Buddha Vista tree and everything. But he is propagating just total Mayavad philosophy, just to upset and confuse the people of Kali Yuga. But then Sankaracharya, he advents, 700 years before Ramanuja. What was the date now? Ramanuja manifests in 1025 or 1035 was Ramanuja. So 700 years before then was Sankaracharya. And so this philosophy that he was propagating is called Advaitavad or Advaita Siddhi, oneness. I am one, God is. It'll be explained. We'll read. Sunyavad is vehemently opposed to the personal conception of Bhagavan, although it partially accepts the principle of the living being's identity as a conscious spiritual soul, Jivatma. It is an extreme example of Nitya-dharma, impermanent religion. We've already discussed this. There's Nitya, Naimitic, and Anitya. So this is Nitya-dharma. The Brahmanas of that era had abandoned the Vedic Dharma and had in effect all become Buddhists. This is why he's come. At that point, Sankaracharya appeared as an extremely powerful incarnation of Mahadev. He re-established the credibility of the Vedic literatures and converted the Sunyavad doctrine of Voidism into the Brahmavad doctrine of Nirvishesh, featureless Brahm. Clear? Clear as the sun? He had to bring the teachings back again. Lord Buddha had pushed them out. Now he's brought them back again with a twist on it. It's not completely Mayavad, which is like Buddhist. It's like a Brahmavad, which doesn't accept the Ishvara aspect. It accepts the unknown, so to speak, the Brahmand, but not the Ishvara aspect. He re-established the credibility of the Vedic literatures and converted the Shunyavad doctrine of Voidism into the Brahmavad doctrine of Nirvishesh, featureless Brahm. This was an extraordinary feat, and India will remain ever indebted to Sri Sankaracharya for this tremendous contribution. If Sankaracharya hadn't come, these Vedic teachings would never have come back into India. Where would we be then? Completely bereft, like animals running in the jungle. All activities in this world fall into one of two categories. Some are relative to a particular period of time, and some are applicable for all time. Okay? The work of Sankaracharya was relative to a particular period and bestowed tremendous benefit. Sankaracharya laid the foundation upon which great acharyas such as Sri Ramanuja erected the edifice of pure Vaishnava Dharma. Consequently, Sankaracharya was a great friend and preceptor who pioneered Vaishnava Dharma. He didn't do it overtly, in a sense, like outwardly. He did it internally. He first brought the scriptures back, but was not supportive of the pure um, uh, Shuddha Bhakti. But Ramanuja, he began the process through the Sampradayas. Lakshman himself, Ram Anuja, he began the process. Vaishisht Advaitavad. Vaishisht means there's a speciality within the oneness. It was like a soft cell to begin with. It's a speciality. Madhvacharya is very prominent. No, it's two. It's not just a speciality. It's distinctly two. It's the Jiva and Krishna. We have to be submissive to the Supreme, taking it out of that Brahmand conception where there's no Ishvara honored. Vaishnavas are now reaping the fruit of Sankaracharya's philosophical precepts. For the Jivas who are bound by matter, there is a great need for Sambandha Gyan, knowledge of the soul's entanglement in material nature and of his relationship with Bhagavan. If we don't have this knowledge, how can we free ourselves? Sankaracharya and the Vaishnavas both accept that the sentient living entities in this material world are completely distinct and separate from their gross and subtle material bodies. So this is the beginning of the philosophy understanding. That the jivas are spiritually existent and that liberation, mukti, entails giving up all connection with this material world. Consequently, there was a great deal of agreement between the doctrine of Sankar and that of the Vaishnava acharyas up to the point of liberation. Beyond liberation. What is beyond? They don't go beyond liberation. They just stop at liberation because that's where the jiva can attain the bliss of the Brahmand. And that's like a limited pay packet, so to speak. Yes, I'll just take this. I'm not suffering anymore. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatmana Sochati Nakanchati. No more suffering, no more lamentation. That's the condition of the Brahman. So we just stop at that place, but we don't develop the personal relationship beyond that world. Sankara has even taught that the worship of Sri Hari is the method by which one can purify the heart and attain liberation. When he left this world, Sankaracharya was quoting Bhaje Govinda, Bhaje Govinda, Bhaje Govinda. This is what he was quoting, but his disciples didn't understand, and they propagated something different, more of a Mayavad, Muktivad path. He has only remained silent regarding what extraordinary destination the jiva attains after liberation. He hasn't even begun his journey just at the point of mukti, at the point of liberation. Our journey doesn't even begin, just becoming liberated. Where is Lalita Saki? Where is Vishaka Saki? If you're just liberated, where are the personalities of Braj? How empty, how void, without Vrindavan Dham, without the precepts of Mahaprabhu. Where is our juice? There's just the juice in this self-love, which is satisfying to a point because it's not like the mad, crazy, material involved consciousness. It's higher than dharma, artha, and karma. Sankara knew perfectly well that if the jiva could be prompted to strive for liberation through the worship of Hari, he would gradually become attached to the pleasure of bhajan and thus become Shuddha Bhaktas, pure devotees. I said this yesterday about the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, how Rupa Goswami, he dangles the carrot of liberation in front of us and talks about the bliss of liberation quite often at the beginning of the Bhakti Rasamrita, trying to entice the jiva, come this way, come this way. And then he starts to talk about the bliss of seva. in the bliss of Seva, there has to be a subject and an object. So it becomes two. So this is the principle of prem. There has to be a subject and an object. Otherwise, this voidistic love is just simply self-indulgence within the pure heart of the liberated, realized spirit soul, but not beyond. There's no connection. That is why he simply pointed out the path and didn't reveal further confidential secrets of Vaishnava Dharma. Those who have scrutinized the commentaries of Sankar can understand his inner intention, but those who are only preoccupied with the external aspect of his teachings remain far away from the threshold of Vaishnava Dharma. Very interesting concept that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is illuminating here. Because if we didn't read this, we would know who is Sankaracharya, but at the same time not understand how his teachings were actually leading to Vaishnava Dharma if you followed them purely. From one specific point of view, the perfected state of absolute oneness, Advaita Siddhi, seems identical to Prem. However, the narrow interpretation of absolute oneness is certainly different from the meaning of Prem. What is Prem? You should understand clearly that Prem is the unadulterated function by which two transcendental entities are spontaneously attracted to each other. We just said that, a subject and an object. Prem cannot occur without the separate existence of two transcendental entities. You should underline that in your book. Prem cannot exist without the presence of two transcendental entities. Otherwise, it's impersonal. It's Advaitavad or Advaita Siddhi, because his question was that. Krishna Prem is the Dharma by which all transcendental entities are eternally attracted to the supreme transcendent entity. Sri Krishna Chandra, sorry. The ideology of Prem rests on the eternally established truths that Krishna Chandra has his own eternal separate existence and that the Jivas have their eternal separate existence following his leadership, Anugatya, and that this Prem Tattva is also an eternally perfect truth, Nitya Siddha Tattva. This is what we just said. Without the appreciation of the kingdom of Vrindavan, and all the personalities in Vrindavan, Mother Yashoda, Dambanda Leela, the pastimes Krishna tackling Kaliya Naga, etc., Pralambasura, Balaram. All of these personalities just will be vacant, not there. A Buddhist practitioner doesn't even know or think these, he thinks this is inferior to the Brahman. Even the Devas think this is inferior to the Brahmanand. We've said before, they don't accept Vishnu as that supreme entity. They accept the impersonal Brahman as being the supreme goal of life. This is the difference, the distinction. So how can the Devas help us in our journey for Shuddha Bhakti? Because it might seem that the Devas can help us to some degree materially. They can. Durga Ma, you can perform different sorts of intense puja like we see in Ram Leela, Indrajit. He had this boon from, was it Durga Ma, I think. Do you remember? You know your Ram Leela? No. Okay, but Indrajit had this great boon, and he could become invisible, so many magical, mystical things if he did his particular puja. So they can give great benediction in this realm, but they can't take you to bhakti because they haven't got bhakti themselves. How can they give you bhakti if they haven't got bhakti? You can't pray to Surya Dev for some mercy for bhakti. You can pray to Surya Dev for material health. Yes, definitely, he can support that. And we honor Surya Dev as the king of all planets. Yakchakshu Esha Savita Sakalagrahanam. We honor Surya Dev, but not to give us bhakti. Where was I up to? The distinct presence of three separate ingredients: the relisher, the object of relisher, and the act of relishing. is a fact. Fascinating. It makes you think, right? You can't gloss it. You can't just let the mind skate away. You have to focus. What's he saying? The relisher, the object of relish, and the act of relishing. If the relisher of prem and the object of relish are one and the same, then prem cannot be an eternal reality. Saying the same thing again and again, but in different lights to make us understand it. We have to appreciate this. This will take us right off the impersonal platform forever. We can say that absolute oneness or Advaita Siddhi is the same as prem if we define Advaita Siddhi as the pure state of a transcendental entity who has no relationship with insentient matter. So Advaita Siddhi means being off the material platform completely. That's that high state of that Paramahansa Sannyasi Thakur was in previously. He was in that state of Brahma Gyan. He was realized in that state. That's why he's such a fit candidate for this subject matter so quickly. Someone was commenting how he's coming so quickly along this line because he was already in that state, but he had the sukriti and association to change completely from the internal absorption to the external of Krishna, to absorbing in the object. And then everything becomes so relishable, so tasty when the object of our worship is begun to become clear through the illumination of the Srimad Bhagavatam, through the light of Chaitanya Charitamrita, because it's so personal. All these different personalities. Shukadev Goswami, he's speaking about all these different people. Vidura. Vidura actually is the brother of Shukadev Goswami. Dhritarashtra is the brother of Shukadev Goswami. Their father is Vyasadev. So knowing all these relationships amongst these personalities is very heartwarming, because you're coming into the Leela aspect, you're coming into the heart region, something out of just the cold knowledge reason place. I'd wait to see. However, this conception of Advaita Siddhi implies oneness in the sense that spiritual entities have become one in their spiritual nature and function. Chit Dharma, we become one in our function. If we become one in our service to Krishna, that can be called Advaita Siddhi. But for the Mayavad, the Brahmavad, that Advaita Siddhi means becoming one with himself. For the devotee, that Advaita Siddhi can be applied the same truth, but with Krishna as the object, not me as the object. However, modern scholars who have adopted the doctrine of Sankhya are not satisfied with this idea, and they have tried to establish that spiritual entities, Chidvastu, have themselves become indistinguishably one and the same substance. That means themselves and the object have become one. Very fine, isn't it? It's a very subtle distinction that they sense, that I have become one with that object of worship. This was our original sin, we can say, when we made that original decision. We wanted to be like God. That's why we even came into this material world. We had the choice to be like God and the controllers, or to be serving God in the spiritual world. That's still our choice. It was the original choice, and it's still our choice at every moment of our lives. Am I looking for my own satisfaction, or I'm somehow trying to put my energy into pleasing Krishna more, into focusing on my seva to please him? If I become dedicated in that direction, I can only be successful. If I lose that focus and want my own pleasure all the time, constantly thinking of my own bliss, how can I be satisfied? That mamata we talked about yesterday, that colossal affair is called what? Samsara. Colossal affair of samsara, being caught, trapped. in this selfish, perverted condition. However, modern scholars who have adopted the doctrine of Sankara are not satisfied with this idea, and they have tried to establish that spiritual entities, Chidvastu, have themselves become indistinguishably one with the same substance, one with God. In so doing, they have degraded the true Vedic conception of non-distinction and have propagated a distorted version in its place. Distorted, perverted, we can say almost. The Vaishnavas declare this philosophy to be opposed to the Vedas because it denies the eternality of Prem. So he's really answered his question solidly, like with a hammer at the end. It denies the reality of pure Prem, because his question was, is Advaita Siddhi the same as Mahabhav? Remember, this is his question that we're talking about. So Prem Das Babaji doesn't move away from the question for a minute. Many times, if philosophers are weak or something, they'll try and politically move a little bit away, not sort of nail it completely. But here, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is addressing it full on, and he's answering it completely. There's no room for speculation in the answer. Sankaracharya described the state of non-distinction simply as the unadulterated condition of spiritual substance. However, his modern-day followers could not understand his inner intention, and consequently they have marred their guru's reputation by teaching a thoroughly debased doctrine known as Mayavad. Why? Because they were so stubbornly wanting to taste the pleasure of being like God, to being like the controllers, to be like my own bliss. It's not that they didn't understand necessarily. They had too much of a desire to exploit something from this material world, an impersonal bliss. It wasn't that they just were unintelligent or anything. They had a desire separate from that personal conception. They held on to that, which describes the various states of prem as illusory phenomena. That's how they can reach that point of oneness. They say, yes, it's all illusory. We are illusory. Everything is illusory. Vrindavan is illusory. Krishna is illusory. The whole state of all the transcendental pastimes, they are all illusionary. Only the state of this blissful, like Shunyavad, Brahm, Mayavad conception is the only reality. It's like a laziness, practically, of spiritual life, isn't it? You just give up on the real development.
They say that like once you get to know, you'll get merged into that light. And
Say that?
Once you realize that you're not this body and this.
Yes, that's it.
Then you enter into that light, and
yes,
function is done.
Yes. I was with a friend for 6 weeks, and he was doing this Wim Hof breathing process very deeply, and he'd come to realize some tiny little spark of Brahman realization. And for 6 weeks, I was speaking to him about the Jiva and Krishna. He couldn't move away from the bliss that he'd experienced doing this yogic type process, because that gave him direct physical or mental subtle satisfaction. And having to go in the direction of Krishna wasn't giving something immediate like that. Exactly like you're saying, yes.
Shantaras.
Huh?
Shantaras.
Shantaras is so sweet. It's what the materialist wants. There's so much confusion and suffering on the planet. Just give me some shanti. Mayavadis deny from the very outset that anything exists except the one spiritual substance, Brahm. They also deny that the function of prem exists within that spiritual substance. So that one bliss, because they only interpret prem as bliss for them. Prem is the sweetness of the relationship between Radha and Krishna, and the gopis and the sakhis and the sakas and Mother Yashoda. This is prem. This is Braja prem. And if we get a glimpse of that, even a tiny particle of a glimpse, and spend the rest of our lives serving it, it's the greatest success that could ever come to an individual, a sadhak. They claim that Brahm is beyond the influence of Maya as long as it remains in a state of oneness, but that Brahm becomes overwhelmed by Maya when it becomes embodied and takes on various shapes in the form of jivas. In other words, we are products of that Maya. Consequently, they believe that the form of Bhagavan is an illusory manifestation. They believe that's all part of the Maya. In reality, this is like the Devas also, ultimately. I'm not disrespecting the Devas when I'm saying this. I'm trying to speak philosophically and appreciate why they're not Shuddha Bhaktas. They can't be Shuddha Bhaktas because actually, they have so much bhoga tyaga around them, so much yoga enjoyment. It's very hard. Even though they're masters of the universe serving Krishna, but they don't realize who that Krishna is sufficiently. In reality, though, his form is eternally pure and constituted of concentrated consciousness. Krishna's form, you see, it's saying that the illusory manifestation, that they make Bhagavan illusory, but actually in reality, his form is concentrated consciousness. For this reason, they have concluded that Prem and its various manifestations are illusory, and that the knowledge of non-duality, Advaita Gyan, is beyond the influence of Maya. Their mistaken conception of Advaita Siddhi or oneness can never be equated with Prem. Do you understand? Something you understand. The more you read, the more you hear, the more you know about the sweetness of devotional service, the more you will appreciate with disgust, the Mayavad conception. It's like we say in the Falshruti, try to dismember the Supreme Lord. This is one of the translations, dismembering the Lord. Where are we? Sri Chaitanya Dev instructed the world to taste Prem, and he personally taught it by his transcendental behavior and activities. This Prem is completely beyond the jurisdiction of Maya, and it is the highest development of the unalloyed state of perfect oneness, Advaita Siddhi. The state known as Mahabhav is a special transformation of this Prem, in which Prem Ananda is extraordinarily powerful. Consequently, both the separateness and the intimate relationship of the lover and the beloved are transported to an unprecedented state. That is the Prem that we're seeking to serve. The inconsequential theory of Mayavad is useless for understanding the subject matter of Prem in any of the stages. So we'll leave it there today. This is absolutely beautiful teachings. If you can catch something of this, because we've talked about, okay, you're not the material body, you're the spiritual soul. But there's a place in between where you can get attracted to this point of liberation, just from the struggle to realize we're not the body, and just to merge into that absolute oneness where I'm not the body anymore, but I haven't realized the function of the soul. And essentially what that merging does, it incinerates the future activities of the soul. It's described as spiritual suicide. That's actually what it is. It's directly suicidal because you've cut your soul off from the opportunity of its real function in service to the Supreme. And instead you've accepted a substitute for service to you and your apparent bliss of being freed from the material conception of the bodily platform. Understand? It's tragic. Yet nevertheless, Rupa Goswami has described in his Lagu Bhavanamrita that the illumination of the spirit soul, when it merges into that place of oneness, is still serving the Lord by the illumination enhancing Krishna's Brahmajyoti. It's still performing service. You can't get away from serving the Lord. They want to get away from serving the Lord. They want to just serve themselves. My bliss, my pleasure. But even if you reach that ultimate place of Sayuja Mukti, or what the Jnani, the Brahm realization, even if you reach that place, you're still serving the Lord. The illumination of your soul will enhance Krishna's Brahmajyoti. So it's very beautiful to appreciate that. Rupa Goswami is illuminating that point. I find that point very pertinent. You're always serving Krishna in any condition, even in that condition when you think you've got away from him, because they don't want to accept the responsibility of that service. So many different tricks of the mind which will make, but so many people go that route. So many people go that route. Most spiritual societies around, other than the Hare Krishnas, are preaching some sort of mood towards that, mukti and liberation. Enjoy yourself, brother. Have a great time. Sit and meditate on top of a mountain. This vipassana. Don't talk to anyone for a few weeks. You know, it'll be really nice for you. You'll have a really inside experience. And you will have. And you'll think, wow, now I found God. I found something beyond the mundanity of what I was before. Like this boy I was telling you about, doing this Wim Hof breathing. He had found something sweeter than the horrors of material existence. And that was enough for him to stay with his faith there, rather than open out to a belief in the Vrindavan panorama of relationships. This is why Braj is so important, to travel through Braj, to hear in Kartik the Braj parikramas, etc., to know all the different Leela Stalis. It just wakes up the whole personal aspect of the Lord. Everything just becomes alive. It's very beautiful. Braj Prem Ki Jai. Advaita Siddhi, nay. Even though it is Advaita Siddhi, it's one with Krishna, but it's one in service to Krishna. These are thick philosophical points, Prabhu. These are not lightweight subject matters at all. Even for the seasoned devotees, these are not lightweight subject matters, but they are so sublime and they're so simple to understand at heart if you just take care and time. If you have some sincerity to want to know the truth, you want to know the personal truth, then they're very simple to understand and appreciate. And Sankaracharya's greatness is also important to appreciate, and not denegate him the way the followers have what do you call adulterated his teachings. What do you say?
Propagated.
Yes, but the adulteration of it, abused his teachings. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Okay, we come to our chapter 2. It's all in the same bag. Everything that we're discussing from top to bottom. Matter and spirit. What is matter and spirit? And the distinction. And don't try to understand these things categorically. Just try to appreciate these things. If we try to get too clinical, too academic, we'll lose the flavor. It'll just become like a straitjacket practically. Then you won't be able to breathe anymore. You understand? Has to have spirit in there, emotion in there, has to be there also. So we're on to page 22.
Yeah. Sannyasi Thakur said with great reverence.
Okay, so I'm going to read the paragraph before that. Oh, I just want to mention one thing. Yesterday, I was mentioning about the Devas not being supreme bhaktas and believing in service to Krishna. But that does not include Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva. Yesterday, a devotee asked me a question about this, a very good question. Brahma is considered a devotee. In this particular day of Lord Brahma, or this lifetime of Lord Brahma, this Brahma is a devotee. Not all the Brahmas are devotees. It's not every single Brahma is going to be a devotee, but this particular Brahma is a devotee. He sees Krishna at when he's come to take the cowherd boys, etc. Huh?
Brahma Vimohan Leela.
Yes, in the Brahma Vimohan Leela. And he has different interactions with Krishna. And he has the beautiful Brahma Samhita that's presented to us. And he's fully devoted. It's to Vaikuntha Bhav. It's to that place of, it's not Raganuga Bhakti, but nevertheless it's Bhakti. And Shivji, Vaishnavam Yashadita Shambhu, he is Gopishwar Mahadev. He's in Vrindavan. He's Gopishwar Mahadev at Vamsivat. So Shivji is also completely devoted. But the other devas, because it's saying in chapter 13 here, it's talking about the qualities of the devotees. And at the end, it's describing very clearly how the devas, they all have these 50 qualities, but are more extreme in Lord Brahma and Lord Shivji. We can see, just quickly reference this, in page 304. You can look in your Jaiva Dharmas. It's describing, or the page before that, 303, it's saying,
At the bottom, 302.
yes, these 50 qualities are present in Bhagavan Srihari to an unlimited degree, like the unfathomable ocean. They are present, this is on top of page 304, they are present to a minute degree in the Jivas, whereas they are fully represented in Purushottam Bhagavan. Another 5 of Krishna's qualities are present in Brahma, Shiva, and other devatas, but not in ordinary Jivas. So Surya Dev also has a greater quantity. But and he also had darshan of Krishna in Nandagram, only for a very brief space of time. So that impression is not very deep, that impression they had of Krishna. But nevertheless, he's still devoted to Krishna. So that means that he's not anxious about merging into the Brahman, as are most of the other devas. And then it's describing those 55 qualities after that. Yes. Okay, so you can get reference from there about the other devas. But that's something that we have to appreciate. Not all the devas, but most of the devas, certainly Indradev, they are anxious to merge into the... They don't give Krishna the credence of his human-like pastimes as being the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They don't consider him there. They consider him a great soul, Vishnu, when he comes, but not as that supreme person. So I wanted to make that part clear. So we'll just read the paragraph prior to there where we're up to. It's very beautiful. Sri Chaitanya Dev instructed the world to taste prem, and he personally taught it by his transcendental behavior and activities. What was Mahaprabhu doing in his renounced years, in 24 years in Puri, in 18 years when he was just residing in Puri, especially the last 12 years in the Gambhira? He was totally immersed in tasting the sweetness of Sri Radhika's separation mood with Swarup Damodar and Rai Ramananda. Day and night he was immersed in these transcendental, exhibiting these Astasattvica bhavs, becoming like a tortoise or becoming elongated in the ocean, etc. He was totally absorbed in that in his last years. He was tasting this prem. This prem is completely beyond the jurisdiction of Maya, and it is the highest development of the unalloyed state of perfect oneness at Advaita Siddhi. He's referencing his question. His question was, is Mahabhav and Advaita Siddhi the same? The Advaita Siddhi that Sannyasi Thakur is talking about is not the same, because that Advaita Siddhi is the Brahmagyan Advaita Siddhi, the Nirvishesh Advaita Siddhi, the merging into the oneness, like Sayuja Mukti. It's like merging into that oneness. But as far as the devotee is concerned, when he becomes one with Krishna, he becomes one in service with Krishna. The state known as Mahabhav is a special transformation of Prem, in which Premananda is extraordinarily powerful. Consequently, both the separateness and intimate relationship of the lover and beloved are transported to an unprecedented state. When we say Mahabhav, this means Mohan and Modan. This means meeting and separation. Madan and Mohan. So we have the Thakurji, Madan, Mohan. This is meeting and separation. We should understand that in the 24 hours of the day of Radha and Krishna's pastime, 12 hours are separation and 12 hours are meeting. It's completely like divided. We have the Madhyana Leela, that's fully intimate meeting. We have the Ratri Leela, that's intimate meeting. We have Nishanta Leela, that's intimate meeting without any elders. When we have the Prata Leela, that is with many elders are around. When we have the Purvana Leela, the Sakas are all there. When we have the Apurana Leela, the Sakas are there also. The Sayam Leela, when Krishna comes back into the village at Goduli, all the residents, Nanda Baba, are there. So where is the intimacy of their union? And then we have Pradosh Leela, before the Ratri Leela. In the nighttime, the village of Vrindavan, there's celebrations and so on. This is when all the elders are around. So there's only those three yamas, Madhyana, Ratri, and Nishanta Leela, when they're fully without the elders. So those three praharas, they add up. Those yamas, they add up to 12 hours exactly. And the 12 hours are the other times of the day. Consequently, both the separateness and the intimate relationship of the lover and beloved are transported to an unprecedented state. The inconsequential theory of Mayavad is useless for understanding the subject matter of Prem in any of its stages. Useless. Doesn't have a... because Mayavad is ultimately selfish. This is what we were talking about yesterday. Completely self-centered. It's the perverted reflection of the spiritual world. Sannyasi Thakur said with great reverence, "O Prabhu, my heart is deeply pierced with the realization that the Mayavad doctrine is most insignificant." This is wonderful to hear him convinced entirely, because he was a great Mayavad. Actually, we would say he's more of a Brahmavad, because he was not being offensive. If you're not offensive to Vaishnavas, like Sanat Kumar, like the four Kumaras, they weren't offensive. They were Brahmavads, but they weren't offensive to Ishvara. Therefore, they could receive knowledge of Ishvara easily with great joy. If offenses had been committed, they wouldn't have been able to access that relationship. Today you have mercifully dispelled whatever lingering doubts I had in this regard. I feel a strong desire to give up wearing this Mayavad sannyas garb. Babaji Mahashai said, "O Mahatma, I never give instructions on external dress." Yes, that external dress should be determined by the practitioner himself. If he has the desire to go, if he's a grihasta and he wants to change his ashram, he should first of all have that desire himself to do that. And then he will consult with his guru, he'll consult with senior people and decide whether that is the best path to take. But he has to make the decision himself first. Because if a grihasta is coerced into taking the renounced order, he's perhaps going to regret it later. If he's pushed into that ashram, if he doesn't have a strong desire for that ashram himself, and if it's not moving into the mood of service, because the mood of service has to be prominent. Moving into these different ashrams should be judged by the enthusiasm for increasing our service. Certainly, for example, in the sannyasa ashram, that's an increased service. You're on stage 24 hours a day in your life. there's never really a moment when you're not being observed or checked against what is the sannyasi dharma, and people are, because it encourages the whole populace. When they see the sannyasis, they can be completely, this can be what they aspire for, that renunciation of material involvement externally. It doesn't necessarily mean it's internal immediately. It should be, but it's not always that case. It's not always the case. When there is too much concern for external appearance, there is inattention to the soul's inner function. This is very important. Not to be all the time considering, I don't want to be in this ashram, I want to be in the... It doesn't really make any difference as far as your bhajan is concerned. Naham vipro na chanalapiti vaishnava shudra, naham vani na chagraha na varashtiyadova, kinto pradyan nikhila paramananda puramritabda, gopi bharatu kamalayo das dasanu das. I am not a brahmachari, I'm not a sannyasi, I'm not a grihasta, I'm not a vanaprastha, I'm none of these things. I'm not a brahman, I'm not a vanaprastha, I'm not a kshatriya, any of these things. I'm a spirit soul. So to aspire to change ashram is really, unless you can perceive your service increasing, and unless the guru is requesting you to enter into that ashram to support his mission. When the Mahabhagavat comes, he has a mission. He needs those renounced personalities to push forward that mission. So he will elect those who he considers strong enough to engage in that, and he will support them. But that's in service to Guru. But if it's just whimsical, wanting the sannyas ashram, we're going to discuss this in chapter 8 in particular. One young devotee is speaking to Haridas, Premdas Haridas, Premdas Thakur, about this particular topic. But this is an important topic to consider. When your heart becomes pure, you will automatically develop attachment for the external behavior of Vaishnavas, and there will be no fault if you change your external dress then. So when you're attached to Vaishnavas, then, and you want to, for example, in the sannyas ashram, if you want to take more of a preaching role, it's very, very helpful. It's very supportive. If you go to someone's house and you're dressed as a sannyasi, they will give you a seat to speak Harikatha. They will give you a prominent stage or a position to speak Harikatha. If you go dressed as a grihasta, they'll probably sit you down and just give you a meal and talk about all material matters more easily. But with a sannyasi, it's more direct. So it's supportive of the preaching. There will be no fault if you change your external dress then. Absorb your heart completely in trying to follow the teachings of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, and later you may adopt the external items of Vaishnava Dharma to which you are naturally inclined. Your natural inclination has to be a natural inclination. You should always remember this instruction of Sriman Mahaprabhu. Makrita Vairagya Nakare Loka Dekana. Yata Yogya Vishaya Bunje Anashakta Hana. Antare Nishtakara Baye Loka Vyavahara. Achirat Krishna Tomaya Karibe Udara. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 16, 238 to 239. Do not adopt Market Vairagya, Marketa Vairagya, external monkey renunciation. What is that? Marketa renunciation. The monkeys, they jump around in the trees, they look like they've got nothing. Right? They've got no bank balance, they've got no home, they've got no baggage, they've got nothing. But they got 1,000 wives perhaps. They got so many wives, so they're not renounced. This is called monkey renunciation. They're involved in sex life. If they're involved in sex life or seeking sex life, then this is Marketa Vairagya. And many times we see in these different ashrams, there's a quote from Prabodhananda Saraswati. He says, what man in the three worlds is not attached to sex life? And those men who are not attached are often seeking prominence on the material stage. They want pratishta, they want fame and adoration instead of sex life. So that can take the place of sex life, the pratishta. So that has to be carefully. And then Prabodhananda Saraswati is saying, oh, intelligent reader, just seek the groves of Vrindavan to find happiness in. In other words, look to the soul. Don't look to the external dress. The external dress is not so important. It has its place, but it's not prominent. You are never a sannyasi. You are always a spirit soul. You are always, in any ashram, you're a spirit soul. Gopi Bhartu Kamalayot Das Das Anudas. I'm always the servant of the servant of Sri Gopinath. Don't adopt Makarta Vairagya, external monkey renunciation, simply to impress the general populace. You should accept without attachment whatever sense objects are appropriate for maintaining your devotional practice and give up all material desires within your heart. This is very profound. Every sentence is a real strong impression that we can get from this. Only look for the welfare of the soul, nothing else. This birth is so short and so temporary. Why want to make a big splash in the material world when the material world is all temporary? It's all nimitic. Why should there be, any ambition to make anything glorious for the body in this material world? Vritrasura, he prays like this in the 6th canto. He says, I don't want lordship of all the entire creation. I don't want the post of Brahma. I don't want any position like this. I only want to be the sold out servant of your lotus feet. The same prayer. Tomorrow I'll read you the verse and translation clearly. Internally develop staunch faith in Sri Krishna and externally carry out your worldly responsibilities in such a way that no one can detect your inner mood. Your inner mood is sacred. It's private. If you open the door, it'll just come out and you'll lose it. You'll lose your strength. Sometimes when you take time during the day for some solitary meditation, away from the crowd, etc., usually in the early morning hours, the Brahma Muhurta hour, that mode of goodness time, when we can just be immersing ourselves in a solitary way. And then we're not influenced by anyone's impression. And that way we can get strength to tackle the rest of the day when so many people might be crowding around us, etc. Yes, and my Gurudev often describes like this. It should be like if someone has a lover, a paramour, then they should very carefully attend to their husband so that the husband doesn't suspect that they have a lover. So if you are very careful to protect your bhakti and you don't demonstrate it externally in a flamboyant type of a way, then you will be able to protect that young sprout of bhakti. It's important to protect the growth of this creeper, this bhakti lata. If you act like this, Sri Krishna will very quickly deliver you from material existence. Yes, it revolves around the simple verse, Trinada Pisa Nichena, Tarora Pisa Hishena, Amanina Maladena Kirtanya Sadhari. And this is like the antithesis of the way most of the world is acting. Most of the world are becoming, the symptom of conditioned life is pride. That's the symptom of conditioned life. And even devotees are conditioned if they're not off that bodily platform. They're still influenced by material desires. So this is why we're discussing this Jaiva Dharma, to help carry us all off that platform of indulging in our material desires. Sannyasi understood the deep significance of this discussion and made no further suggestion about changing his outer dress. Folding his hands, he said, "Prabhu, since I am now your disciple, I have taken shelter at your lotus feet. I will bear upon my head whatever instructions you give without any argument." Yes, there should be no contention. Guru has our well-being in mind only. And he may ask us to do all kinds of things, but he has our complete spiritual well-being most prominent. If he asks you to do a lot of service, it's because he's perceiving you as being quite mental perhaps, and you need to become more active in the seva realm. Guru will do like that. He will give us all the right ingredients to develop our bhakti and not just sit in the subtle or mental planes, but actually to go forward and purify that plane. So Guru is always trying to encourage that mood. Prabhu, since I am now your disciple, I've taken shelter below his feet. I mean, all that I'm saying, there are nuances amongst it. There are individual situations, but this is just a general mood that I'm sharing with you to appreciate. I have understood from your instructions that unadulterated Krishna Prem constitutes the only Vaishnava Dharma. This love for Krishna is the Nitya-dharma of the Jivas, and it is complete, pure, and natural. This is the only principle that Guru wants to encourage us towards, is Nitya Prem, for all conditioned souls. Guru and Krishna are the same. Sakshat Davitre Nastamasta Shastre. Why are they the same? Because they both have the same desire to relieve the conditioned souls of their conditioned mentalities and purify their consciousnesses to bring it to a higher state of consciousness where their true Nitya-dharma will be revealed, and then they will be completely blissful. Then they will be so satisfied and happy. But what are the various dharmas that are prevalent in different countries? How should I regard these different religions? This was Sannyasi Thakur's original question in chapter 1. He was asking, if dharma is one, why are there so many different opinions about it? So this thread of appreciating what is Nitya Dharma, what is Nitya Prem, is coming through in every page. This we should appreciate the excellence of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's brilliance in presenting this book, this Jaiva Dharma. It doesn't shift from the principal consideration of where is our true welfare situated. Where is the true welfare for the Jiva? The absolute true welfare of the Jiva. There's no contradiction here. How should I regard these different religions? Babaji Mahashai says, "O Mahatma, Dham is only one." Yes, we've discussed at length in the first chapter. The Swabhav of the Jiva, not the Nishag, not the acquired nature, not this. Not two or many. The Jivas have only one Dharma, and that is known as Vaishnava Dharma. Differences of language, country, or race cannot create difference in Dharma. Jaiva Dharma is the constitutional function of the Jiva. That was almost going to be the title of the Jaiva Dharma book, actually. We were throwing up the idea of, should we present this book called Jaiva Dharma for the Western audience, or should we call it the constitutional function of the Jiva? And then we were thinking we'll put in brackets underneath, but it never actually happened that way. But this one sentence alone sums up the entire book, the constitutional function of the Jiva. That's what Jaiva Dharma means. Jaiva, Jiva, Jaiva Dharma, Vaishnava Dharma, Sanatan Dharma. It's all one like that. People may give it different names, but they cannot create a different constitutional function. You can't change the function. You can't change it. The function is one. The function is one, service to Krishna. That's the function. Whatever you do, you can't change that. Jaiva Dharma is the unadulterated spiritual love that the infinitesimal entity has for the infinite entity. The infinitesimal entity has for the infinite entity. Yes, that Nitya Prem. It appears to become distorted into various mundane forms because the jivas possess different material natures. Yes, we're seeing through different lenses. So unless we know the truth, unless we're educated, we'll distort the truth. We won't see it properly as it is. Like Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada presented his Bhagavad Gita as it is. There's no distortion with it. But what have we got simultaneously? We've got hundreds, maybe even thousands of different versions of Bhagavad Gita on the planet. There are hundreds of them. And they're saying different, they're pointing in, many are saying that the 5 Pandavas are the 5 senses. The whole battle of Mahabharata is all about the battle that the soul has to go through with the mind, etc. This is all impersonal, making the whole Bhagavad Gita, and people love it because they want to go that way, because they haven't come in contact with a pure Rasik Vaishnava who's inspired their hearts sufficiently that the kingdom of Vrindavan is the most attractive meditation in existence, and our service to that personality, Brajendra Nandan, Shyam Sundar, and Radhika, following the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It appears to become distorted into various mundane forms because the jivas possess different material natures. That is why the name Vaishnava Dharma has been given to identify the pure form of Jaiva Dharma. The degree of Vaishnava Dharma in any religion or Dharma is a measure of its purity. So in many religions, they have a thread of Dharma within them. Like in the Islamic religion, of course, the actual focus is completely distorted, but many of the practices of renunciation and celibacy, they also practice in there, the proper practicing personalities, etc. They have some smell of Dharma there. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to hold up as a religion at all. Christianity also has some Dharma in it. So the measure of its Dharma, Christianity points to a personal form of God. Not so personal, in fact, because they don't define God. They just say, Lord Jesus said, in his house there were many mansions, but they don't give a definition of where does God live? What is the nature of God's world? What is he doing? They talk about angels, archangels, this and that and the other, but they don't have a clear, explicit description of if you read the Christian mystics, for example, they have their focus on the impersonal aspect, on the Brahman, on the light coming from God. So it's very difficult you can't attain that Nitya Seva Prem, that Amal Prem Seva, through these other religions if they're not explicit in what is the goal fundamentally. Some time ago in Sri Vrindavan Dham, I submitted a question at the lotus feet of Sriman Mahaprabhu's confidential associate, Sri Sanatan Goswami. I asked him whether the word ishq in the Islamic religious tradition means unadulterated love or something else. Sanatan Goswami was a learned scholar of all the Shastras, and his erudition in the Arabic and Farsi languages in particular knew no bounds. Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and other exalted preceptors were present in that assembly. Sri Sanatan Goswami kindly answered my question as follows. Yes, the word ishq means love. Adherents of Islam do use the word ishq in relation to the worship of Ishvara, but the word generally means love in the ordinary worldly sense. Not transcendental, because they don't have access and knowledge to connect with transcendence. If you're not connecting with transcendence, you're going to try because love is a beautiful word. Everyone loves to talk about love. Love between people, love with family. Love it connotates a very sweet meaning. Love, we like to hear about, but it's all based on self-love if it's not connecting with transcendence. You understand? It's about me enjoying something, a relationship with my wife, a relationship with my mother, with my father, with my children, etc. Right? It's true or not? Is it?
I agree.
You can say if it's not. We'll discuss it. But the word generally means love in the ordinary worldly sense. Listen, Islamic religious teachers have not been able to understand the true conception of the pure spiritual entity or the Shuddha Chist Vastu. If you don't understand who is God, I just said this about Christianity. If you don't know where he lives, what his pastimes are, who he's interacting with, what is he doing, then you think he's just doesn't exist, basically. He's not a person. He doesn't have associates. We know so much about Krishna. So many details we know about Krishna. We speak for a whole month about Krishna in Kartik. His relationship with his mother, being bound, etc. All of these are directly about Krishna, about God. But in Islam, they don't have anything. And in Christianity also, if you read the Bible thoroughly, it's often just historical accounts of different kings and so on, and parables and so on. But there's limited, absolutely almost zero description of God and his kingdom. They talk about Adam and Eve a little bit, flickeringly for a moment, but that's it. It's like an imagination. This is evident from the poetic account of the devoted lovers Laila and Majnun, and from the literary descriptions of Ishq by the great poet Hafiz. You know about this poem, these poets?
Yeah,
You've read?
Majnun and Leela, like
Your name was
childhood.
Rumi before,
Yeah.
so you know these things. They have referred, huh?
Not like the poet Rumi.
Oh, okay. They have referred to Ishq either as physical love pertaining to the gross body or as emotional love in relation to the subtle body. So there's two. There's the physical connection and there's the subtle connection in love. But it's missing the transcendental connection. He's already said this. What did he say? Prem only exists between two transcendental entities. This is what he said previously, right? When Thakur was asking about Advaita Siddhi and Mahabhav. He said, no, pure love, because Advaita Siddhi is only one, singular. Prem is two, a subject and an object. And those two transcendental entities. They have referred to Ishq either as physical love pertaining to the gross body or as emotional love in relation to the subtle body. Thus, they cannot have had any experience of unadulterated divine love or prem towards Bhagavan. They cannot have had that. If you haven't had that, then you're not. The Dharma of the Islamic religion is actually quite vacant when it comes to pure love. It's not there. Otherwise, they wouldn't kill cows all the time in such a horrific way. I have never seen this type of prem described in any religious text of the Muslim teachers, because we have chapter 11 here in the Jaiva Dharma, where the Muslims, they come and they debate with the Vaishnavas about this topic of the deity, etc. It's very fascinating. It's interesting. And it's all clear, because Bhaktivinoda Thakur is living in a Muslim state. There are so many Muslims here in Bengal, for example. So we have to deal with these teachings, etc. I have never seen this type of prem described in any religious text of the Muslim teachers. I've only seen it in the Vaishnava Shastras. The same is true of the Muslim word ruh, which means soul or spirit. It does not seem that Muslim teachers have used the word ruh to mean the Shuddha Jiva, the liberated soul. Rather, they have used the word ruh in the sense of the Baddha Jiva, the soul bound by matter, material in other words. They haven't had the fortune to have knowledge, vidya, to access the transcendental world, to make the connection, to connect, to get the channel, the current manifesting from there. I have not seen unadulterated love for Krishna taught in any other religion, whereas descriptions of Krishna Prem are common throughout the teachings of Vaishnava Dharma. In the second shloka of Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna Prem has been lucidly described in the statement Projita Kaitava Dharma. This Srimad Bhagavatam propounds the highest truth from which all pretentious religiosity has been rejected. This Vaishnava Dharma is very brave, it's very bold, it's very pure. Because it's pure and without blemish, then that person who is immersed in Vaishnava Dharma will have that bold quality also, because he has no fear. We have nothing to fear. Nonetheless, I have full faith that Sri Krishna Chaitanya was the first to give full instructions on the religion of unalloyed Krishna Prem. Now there's a distinction. Mahaprabhu has given something different. Mahaprabhu has carried that Sanatan Dharma to another level of Braja Prem, Shuddha Bhakti in Vrindavan. He's brought it to another place, Raganuga Bhakti. This was not propagated previously. If you have faith in my words, you may accept this conclusion. So he's just saying this in a hint, in a sense. Having heard these instructions, I offered prostrated obeisances to Sanatana Goswami again and again. When Sannyasi Thakur heard this explanation from Babaji Maharaj, he immediately offered Dandavat pranams to him. Paramahamsa Babaji then said, O best of the bhaktas, I will now answer your second question. Please listen attentively. So we can stop here and we can look at this second question tomorrow. And we can conclude this chapter tomorrow also. So this is fascinating, an appreciation of these different religions and Dharma. Where there is a smell of Dharma, we acknowledge that as coming from Vaishnava Dharma or Sanatana Dharma. So it has some property to be respected. But if there's no Dharma, if it's like completely animalistic, like tribal, then we have no connection with it whatsoever. So, Jaiva Dharma ki jai. What an ecstatic scripture. It just goes from one point of ecstasy to another. Just opening, and such a profound way. Jaiva Dharma ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaura Premanandi. So now we've come to page 25, and I'm just going to read. So yesterday, Babaji was explaining some beautiful truths about Islam and how the profundity of prem is totally absent, that the Muslim creed, the Quran, doesn't explain, doesn't open out what is prem. It's not there. It's like the Christian doctrine also doesn't. These two religions are called Kali Yuga religions. Christianity and Islam are not mentioned in the scriptures. It's not like part of the scriptural path. These are religions that have sprung up in Kali Yuga, again to distract the populace from pure Dharma. This is the name. Kali Yuga is a place for it's when the demons have their time. The demons flourish in Kali Yuga, but at the same time, devotional service also flourishes because it's such a complete contrast to the way that the demons act. And if anyone is sensitive and intelligent, they'll see the absolute shocking way that the demons act and completely go the other way, just out of just to see the horrors of what the demons perform. Then we take deeper shelter of pure Shuddha Dharma, not just worldly Dharma. But even if you come to the platform of worldly Dharma, then that is better than being adharmic. Although, if we are born in various adharmic families and we come to this process from an adharmic place, it makes no difference. If you come from an adharmic place or you come from a dharmic place, if you come to bhakti, then your life is fully successful, coming from either adharmic or dharmic in both instances. So both have their advantages and disadvantages. Like in the dharmic world, for example, many times young men from India, they get caught up by their parents wanting them to get married, etc., and all kinds of uh, instructions coming from an older traditional mood of their parents, etc. In the Western world, generally they're not so much controlled by their parents in that way, but they have other disadvantages too. They're more prone to the allurements of gross maya. So in both cases, there's disadvantages and advantages. Either way, this chapter and refresh the question. So the question was, the second part of the question was, if the natural function of the jiva is formed at the time he is constituted, how can that function be eternal? This is the second part of the question that Babaji is going to answer now. Please listen attentively. The words creation and formation, when applied to the jiva, are used in a material context. The jiva is not born or doesn't die. He's eternal. He's a spirit soul. He's of that nature. The speech of this world functions by drawing from the experience of material phenomena. The time that we experience is divided into three phases of past, present, and future. This is material time, Jadiya Kal, which is connected with the material energy, Maya. Okay, very clear. In the spiritual domain, there is spiritual time, Chit Kala, which eternally exists in the present, with no divisions of past or future. It's described as the powerful present. The powerful present is eternally in existence within the spiritual world. There's no future, no past. There is a mood of, for Leela's sake, various influences of arranging for a future meeting, etc. Radha and Krishna will arrange for a future. For the Leela's sake, these considerations will be there. But in the principal state of consciousness, it is always in the powerful present. Every moment in the spiritual world is fully conscious. It's fully, when he turned to you and spoke to you, you would feel that he had all the time in the world and was just looking at you, and he was just immersing himself in your particular situation and predicament, whatever. And he'd completely forgotten everything else. That means being completely present in the moment. He was always like that. He was always fully present in the powerful moment of a transcendental personality. The time that we experience is divided into three phases of past, present, and future. This is material time, Jadiya Kal, which is connected with the material energy, Maya. In the spiritual domain, there is spiritual time, Chit Kala, which eternally exists in the present with no divisions of past or future. The jivas and Krishna exist in that spiritual time, so the jiva is eternal and everlasting. This is the answer to his question. The jiva is eternal and everlasting in the spiritual consideration. The functions of creation, formation, and falling take place under the influence of material time, and they are used to describe the jiva after he is bound in this material world. After he is bound in this material world. However, even though the jiva is infinitesimal, he is an eternal spiritual entity, and his fundamental constitution existed before he entered this material world. We were constituted previous to coming here. Our staiva, our inherent Swabhav was already there before we came here. We are simply in process of uncovering that original move, prakatam riti sadyate. From this verse I quoted the other day, kriti sadya bhavet sadya bhav sasadhanabhida nitya siddhyasya bhavasya prakatam. Reality within the jiva is there. He is an eternal, however, even though the jiva is infinitesimal, he is an eternal spiritual entity, and his fundamental constitution existed before he entered this material world. Since past and future do not exist in the spiritual world, whatever occurs within that spiritual time frame is eternally present. Therefore, in reality, the jiva and his constitutional function are both ever present and eternal. What a sublime answer to the question. So beautiful, so clear, absolutely crisp. I have explained all this to you in words, but you can only understand their true meaning to the extent that you have realized and experienced the unalloyed spiritual realm. I have just given you a glimpse. You should try to realize the meaning of what I have said through Chit Sambandha, spiritual meditation. Chit Samadhi, spiritual meditation. Chit Sambandha also you can say, but the word is Chit Samadhi. You will not be able to understand these topics through mundane logic or by debate. Don't try and apply your good academic, intelligent brain to these topics. They will just flounder. They will just become exhausted and there'll be no taste ultimately. You will go in the road of what they call thorny gyan, the thickets of thorny gyan, the thorny thickets of gyan. If we try to put everything in boxes, if we try to itemize everything, so our intelligence is satisfied. If the intelligence is satisfied, why will you have any more greed to go further? There needs some foundation, of course. Intelligence has to be pacified to a degree, but just to the degree where you can move to the next step. Don't keep banging on the same point again and again and again. Once you've understood one step, then take to the next step, because spiritual progress or the spiritual path is only progressive. It's only moving forward. If it's not moving forward, then it's no longer evolving spiritually and you just become static. This is not our path. So be careful for that. Many sometimes try to become over rational or over logical, even discussing so many of these points, in different forums. Often on Facebook, we hear that there's many discussions on these points again and again and again, and someone saying one thing and it's like becomes how can you get realization from that? You can only get realization from your own practice. If you're practicing your sadhan bhajan, if you're reading these truths, and if you want to share your realizations, that's one thing. But if you want to debate about them, that's dangerous. That's going to create some weakness within you. It's not going to be beneficial. It's described Rupa Goswami had no logic, no reasoning at all. Sanatana Goswami had some, but Rupa Goswami had none. My Gurudev often describes that his Gurudev had sufficient logic and reason to actually perform different activities. But he himself, my Gurudev, he says he doesn't have any of this logic and reason within it. It's someone who's always trying to calculate. This is not a healthy activity to be calculating all the time. Actually, we just have to, it's like I can remember reading the pastimes or the descriptions from the Christian mystics, and they would talk about coming into the light of the Brahman, and they would be in complete bliss and happiness, and then they would start to analyze it, and immediately it would cut, immediately it would fail, and they would come out of that state of consciousness as soon as you try to analyze it. Analyzing it means I want to catch it, I want to control it. That's actually what it's like. It's like I want to be able to control this myself. I want to have it rather than experience it. It's not something to be controlled or put in your pocket. It's something to be experienced. It's to relish the speciality of that divine exchange between us and that transcendental world. It has no boundaries. It has no walls of rationality. It's just a free flowing connection. There's no rationality there. As soon as we want to rationalize on it, we have the desire to control it, then it just goes away. It disappears because that's not its nature. That transcendental mood will flow towards us in the form of mercy. And if we can reciprocate and appreciate that mood and stay in that focus on the transcendental object alone with affection, that will be success. Not trying to write it down, catch it, eliminate, because we're afraid of losing it. We're afraid after so many lifetimes, I haven't had this, now I have to catch it and have security through that. But there's no security through, you can't actually catch it. It doesn't work that way. You can only experience it. And you can only realize what I'm saying when you've had realization of that. You will not be able to understand these topics through mundane logic or debate. The more you can free your faculty of experience from material bondage, yes, it's material bondage, it's a material thing to calculate, the more you will be able to experience the spiritual domain, the more you can be liberated from that. First, you should cultivate the realization of your pure spiritual identity and practice chanting Sri Krishna Nam purely. Then your spiritual function, known as Jaiva Dharma, will be clearly revealed. This is all. Spiritual realization and experience cannot be fully purified by the eightfold yoga system known as Astanga Yoga or Brahmagyan by cultivating knowledge of the all-pervading featureless Brahm. It can't be done through these material practices. It can't be done through material academic intelligence. It can't be captured that way. You can't capture this. It's just something to stop trying to be the doer, to stop trying to be the controller, but just to try to be grateful for the mercy that comes, try to be submissive, try to be pliant, try to be soft. Bhakti Devi herself is very soft, very gentle, very submissive. That's the mood, submissive to Krishna's desires. Bang your head. The Jiva can only manifest his Nitya-dharma or eternally cultivating activities directly meant for Krishna's pleasure. That's the fundamental thing. By directly you should constantly practice chanting Harinam with great enthusiasm. Such practice is true spiritual culture. By chanting Harinam regularly, you will develop unprecedented attachment for Sri Krishna Nam within a short time, and you will directly experience the spiritual realm. What else is there to do really with our lives in the early morning hours, in the Brahma Muhurta hour, except to chant and to try and bring this utsaha, this festival of enthusiasm towards the object of our attraction, to create more attraction for that object. Chanting Sri Harinam is the foremost of all the different limbs of bhakti, and it yields the quickest results. This is confirmed by Sri Mahaprabhu's instructions to Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj's magnificent work, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antilila 4:70-71. Bhajanera Madhya Shrestha Nava Vidhi Bhakti, Krishna Prema Krishna Titi Dare Mahashakti, Dhara Madhya Sarva Shrestha Nama Sankirtan, Niraparade Nama Loile, Haya Premadan. Of all the different types of spiritual practice, the 9 forms of bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam, etc., are the best because they have tremendous power to deliver Krishna and Krishna Prem, deliver Krishna to the sadhak, and therefore Krishna Prem will manifest. Of these 9 practices, Nam Sankirtan is the best. By chanting Sri Krishna Nam without offense, one obtains the priceless treasure of Prem. This is all. All the acharyas will concur. Mahatma, if you ask how to recognize a Vaishnava, I will tell you that a Vaishnava is someone who has given up all offenses and who chants Sri Krishna Nam with great feeling. There are 3 categories of Vaishnavas: the Kanishta, neophyte, the Madhyam, intermediate, and the Uttam, most exalted. A Kanishta Vaishnava chants the name of Krishna occasionally. A Madhyam Vaishnava chants the name of Krishna constantly, and an Uttam Vaishnava causes others to chant Sri Nam by his very presence. According to Mahaprabhu's instructions, we do not need any other criteria to discern who is a Vaishnava. My Gurudev would constantly say, you must quickly come off this Kanishta, Nishta, no Nishta. Come off this Kanishta platform and develop love and service for the Vaishnavas. These 3 stages, Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttam, are described in chapter 8. Very much they're brought out in that chapter. But it's essential for us to understand who is a Vaishnava. What is the depth of their sincerity towards waking up their Krishna consciousness? You can tell in an instant. I can usually tell personally if someone talks too much, it means they're not chanting sufficiently. If someone is always talking, not about Krishna consciousness necessarily, but just they always have so much to say, it means they haven't developed that internal sweetness or fragrance of relishing Nam. It hasn't come to pass. So, but we must learn to discern who is an honest Vaishnava, who is practicing these paths, these truths, without duplicity. This is described in chapter 8. Sannyasi Thakur was deeply immersed in the nectar of Babaji Mahashai's instructions, and he began to dance as he chanted Sri Krishna Nam, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And we always appreciate the meeting and separation within the Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, they're together. Hare Krishna, they're together. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, they're separated. This dynamic of meeting and separation constitutes the potency of Rag Marg, appreciating this meeting and separation. Separation will nourish meeting. Without separation, meeting will not be full. Separation is essential. In the spiritual world, separation is there by conception. It's not a reality in the spiritual world, but by conception it's there. So this meeting and separation, we discussed this yesterday, how in the 12 hours of the 24 hours of the day, 12 hours are intimate meeting and 12 hours are not. So this is essential to appreciate. Within the Mahamantra itself, we can appreciate this. On that day, he experienced ruchi, a natural taste for Harinam. Offering prostrated obeisances unto the lotus feet of his guru, he prayed, Prabhu, O friend of the destitute, please bestow your mercy upon this wretched soul. This is the conclusion of his melting heart. He knows that now he needs mercy. All his pride has been vanquished. Pride in his erudition, pride in his apparent status, etc. It's all been completely washed away by his association with Prem Das Babaji and his incredible words that he's been answering clearly all his questions with. So now he's only wanting mercy. Now he understands that mercy, I'm feeling gratitude because I've entered this pathway. The door has been opened and I've come in due to this personality's, Prem Das Babaji's mercy. Now I just want more of that mercy to continue on this path. So this is his mood of deep humility. If the mood of deep humility comes at the end of our appreciation of these truths, then we should understand, yes, something must have penetrated. But if a mood of arrogance and pride comes, oh, now I've understood, now I know the truth more than somebody else, or some envy is there, then this means that we haven't understood. So this final verse is Trinadapi Sunichina, Tarodapi Suhishina, Amanina Manadena, Kiratanya Sadahari. So we finished our chapter 2, and a most incredible chapter following on from chapter 1. Both of these chapters are bringing us the truth of our identity. Who am I? Who is God? Who is Krishna? And what is the nature of the world I live in? These three vastus, Krishna, the Jiva, and Maya. This is what are unfolded here. So we'll stop there for today. So, Jaiva Dharma ki jai. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Ananta Koda Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Golda Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.